Welcome to the Disarrangement, hosted by the two coolest cats around, Austin Blakely and Nick Branscombe. Prepare to get disarranged.
Come one, come all, for what thrice and undulates in your ears is not for the faint of heart. Behold! It's the Disarrangement. I think I peaked with your host, Austin Blakely. That is me, and my co-host, Nick Branscombe. How you doing, Nick?
Greetings, friends of Earth and beyond. I'm doing good. Blakely, how about yourself?
Friends in the space. There's been a lot going on in space.
I mean,
lately.
there could be people in different planets listening to this podcast. I mean, you never know.
But I do have a question to start off the podcast for you here, Nick.
El Pregunta.
What's the difference in a hippo and a lighter?
Does that have something to do with like Zippo, like the lighter company?
I like the connection, but okay. So I'm going to introduce our guest already because he looks like he's got the answer in his mouth. This is our good buddy Austin Branch. I'll let you kind of explain yourself here in a bit, but he's a very, very intelligent man. So
salutations, comrades.
This is Branch. So do you know the answer to my question?
I'm going to guess the obvious answer. I think it's just the answer of one's lighter.
Yep. One's really heavy and the other's a little lighter. Okay.
Dad jokes.
Yeah. You're going to get hit with those a lot, and Nick's going to go like research all the dad jokes in the world because he's like, Austin ain't getting me this time. I had one for you last time, remember? And I was like, that it's something, I can't remember it. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess it's not that important. So I kind of continued on.
I heard one the other day. A dude told it on Facebook. It had something to do with a campground. It was like, what happened with all the grizzly bears at the campground or something like that.
Like, just in general, like
something like that.
Yeah. Well, what was the answer?
It was intense. I don't think I told it right, but it was something along those lines.
I have a funny one that's kind of similar. It was it had something to do with you brought up campgrounds, and it reminded me of it. It was why do you ran past tense? You don't run past tense because it's past tense. Yeah,
what? Because. Jesus Christ. Well, and I use that as an analogy too. So like, I'll be like, it's like having sex while camping, you know, the fucking intense.
Yeah.
So I've done that before a couple times.
We're just going to become a podcast that's nothing but dad jokes.
The Dad Jokes Podcast.
I think we would actually be very successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might actually.
We probably wouldn't be able to have 3-hour episodes. I don't know how.
It wouldn't extend that. We'd run out of dad jokes.
Maybe that'll be our side
side
podcast.
gig.
Maybe we'll start with dad jokes, and then after a while, it's just us having dad conversations since we all have kids and stuff.
Yeah. Eventually, it'll get to that point.
Yeah.
At the current moment, none of us have got a child, but
this was today, March something 2022.
March. Oh,
it's the 21st.
Okay, so for us, it is the 21st.
Yeah, it's the 21st.
Yeah, my laptop doesn't want to know. Yeah, it's the 21st. For you guys, it will be the 25th. So if you're listening to this on the 25th, I assume we still don't have children.
We still don't even have any proof that Nick's ever even done that in his life. I mean, this poor little man, he's just sitting here like so awkwardly like,
look, I'm a good Christian.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
I'm a good Christian Samaritan. I don't engage in
started that
sinful
conversation?
Activity.
Do you remember what started that conversation, Branch?
I think it was a slightly inappropriate conversation between you and Steph, and then I joined.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and then Branch joined. But anyways, where I want to go with this first, because we are all Panthers fans. Actually, no, Branch, I want you to kind of tell us about you. And, like, yeah, let the listeners know. I think most of the listeners, we didn't do that with Austin Needham, but I think most of the listeners probably knew Austin Needham. So, but as far as you, Branch, you know, it's not like you were in a band with us. So I want everybody to know, who this man is.
Hi, I'm Austin Branch. I'm the one they excluded from the band, obviously, from that statement. If anyone has heard me sing, it sounds amazing, and wonderful.
He's
and
looking for a
I'm
gig.
Totally not being sarcastic whatsoever when I say that.
He's looking for a gig.
But as Mr. Blakely over here said, yes, I am also a Panthers fan. I generally pull for Carolina in most sports, except for college sports. I pull for the University of Florida. And because the first baseball game I ever saw was a Rays game, and we don't have a Carolina baseball team, I guess I'm a Rays fan.
You're a Rays fan. Hell yeah. Oh yeah. So Branch is a good buddy from our childhood that
We all went to elementary school together. Branch
we
was
went
in
all
my
through
grade. You
school.
were a grade ahead of us.
we
Blakely.
went all through school together.
But yes,
though.
all-
every school.
I actually remember Austin Blakely here. I think he was the very first friend I made when I moved here. He was the first person who I sat on the bus and talked to when I first moved here.
Yeah, because me and Branch lived on the same street.
Did
lot
you
of
go
video
to
games.
Did you go to Fun Club with us, Branch? Or
Yeah, he was
that-
in Fun Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
He was in
remember.
Fun Club.
Yeah, you
So-
were only there a little bit. Me and Austin were there a little bit more.
I was in and out, but so for anybody listening that wants to know what the hell is Fun Club, there was this after school thing in elementary school where we would like literally just go to the cafeteria and there were like YMCA counselors there, and we would do our homework and then I don't know goof off for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
and-
pretty much.
Till our parents came and picked us up, and that's how we all met. That's how I met Blakely, and I'm assuming that's how I met Branch, but we could have met in a class or something like that too.
That sounds right. I just remember meeting Austin on the bus, but yeah, I mostly remember like probably meeting you guys mostly and like getting to know you guys through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
and we both have the same initials, AB. That's a thing.
Well, the same exact first name.
Yeah, identical first names. But
And me and Nick used to always have to sit together anytime we had a class together because Branch and Brent's
Yeah,
almost
that's
back to
right.
back,
Yeah.
yeah, so we were gonna meet each other no matter what.
So we probably graduated like sitting beside each other then.
Yeah, we did.
Damn
We
near
did.
close.
I had
Yeah.
Heather on one side of me and you were on the other.
Yeah, okay. So we're coming up on 10 years now, dude. We
Yeah,
graduated in 2012.
You
so-
know, I saw something online. Apparently, our 10-year reunion's coming up in a couple months. Yeah.
Are they actually having one?
From what I saw online, yeah, I got invited by a couple people in the group. It wasn't hardly anybody I knew though.
Oh, I haven't been invited. I must not be very liked by
I
our class.
remember I
No
talked
offense, you were kind of a little shit back then.
I talked to a fella last year about that, like a 10-year reunion. I guess it would have been 10 years last year, and of course I'm not. I'm not in some of the yearbooks. That's how in the back of the class that I was when I went to school. Seriously, and I think I wasn't in my freshman or my sophomore yearbook. You go in there and look, I'm not there. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh, I spoke with a fellow I went to school with. It was Ben Alderman. I don't know if y'all remember Ben. But I saw him. I went to go get my hair cut, and it was in the same place. And so I talked to him for a bit. And I don't think they had it, to be honest with you. But again, COVID, so it may have been rescheduled or something.
I have another friend from your grade, and she said that she heard about it, and then she assumed it got canceled, and there was like less than 10 people that were there.
Yeah, I heard about it, but it's not like I was invited. I only was told that like Ben said there was talks about it, like, but there wasn't necessarily like any plans. Like he hadn't heard where it was supposed to be, what was going on, or anything like that. So
I feel like it'd be kind of awkward in a sense, because
Yeah,
most of those
absolutely.
people you have like how you remember them, right, from 10 years ago, and now most of them I'm sure have changed in appearance and
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that. So
I mean, we've changed, man.
Yeah.
Like it's. I wish. I think that's probably the last thing I should do because I didn't even want to walk, guys. Like I was that bad. Like where like my mom did it last minute. Like she was like, "You didn't order your cap and gown or didn't tell me anything about it," and I was like, "Look, money's tight and I don't necessarily want to do it." And she's like, "You can only do it once." And I was like, "Well, I just didn't want." And she goes, "You're doing it," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm doing it." So that's kind of that's how I even made it there, But anyway, so yeah, we know each other from school. Also, Branch too. I was saying video games earlier. He's got a nice collection. Do you still have that collection?
Not as much as I used to. So I used to have a whole bunch of
You
retro
have a
games.
whole bunch.
Yeah.
of
And
like
I-
old school video games.
I sold most of those off probably about a little less than 10 years ago now. And as of now, the only thing really retro I have an old Nintendo 64, which I have a bunch of games for it. And now that the Switch has those online games in the shop, I'm like, well,
Why
I
in the
bought
hell
all
should I
these,
even
and
have this?
now I hardly even need to use them anymore. But I still have a couple games on there.
Collectible at this point.
Yeah, but I still have a couple games on there they don't have online, so I guess it's worth it in some ways.
Yeah, and you've been doing some moving too, so it does make sense hauling. Because I remember you having a collection, a legit collection.
I remember taking it into Edward McKay's to sell it, and it took them.
I bet that felt bad too, doing that.
It took them like an hour and a half to go through all that stuff. It was so much stuff.
Did they pay you good for it?
I put it to you this way: I had enough to get a PS3 at the time and 2 games. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was a decent little payday for it. It was a few $100.
Yeah, and so also too is there. I know you ride motorcycles and stuff, but I know you just got rid of a motorcycle. Any other hobbies, things that you're an expert?
I guess I'll advertise on here. I do like to draw a lot, and I just recently through a talk with one of my friends changed my Instagram page to a pure art page. So it's @thebranchinator, exactly how it sounds.
Yes,
I've seen a lot of Branch's work, and he is freaking good, especially with like the superheroes and stuff like that. He's a whiz.
Yeah, so if you need anything commissioned, make sure you go hit him up on Instagram. You can go look at and through all his pictures. I'm sure he could draw you just about anything. But you'll see his specialty and his style. It's really nice. It's worth checking out.
Definitely.
Anything else, Branch?
Let's see. I think we hit the big ones: motorcycles, sports, comic books, video games, drawing.
Yeah, he's a big superhero guy. Which we've got a topic about that coming up. So
only other thing I like to do is really hike nowadays. So that's about it, really.
I've been doing some hiking.
And he's into physical fitness too.
Yeah, I need to be doing some hiking.
Yeah.
If I knew I could make it through a decent hike, I would do it.
I'm
preparing.
You know what? I've been saying this for a while. Like, all my friends are indoorsy, so it's hard to find people to hike with. I think I'm just going to drag you guys out there one day. Like, I'm going to make
Dude, I would love
I'm
that.
scared of getting like halfway through a hike and just sitting down.
I'm kind of the same way. A lot of the people I know, except for like Needham, I don't know if he told you, but he's going on like a 10-mile hike in a couple of weeks.
Damn. No, he didn't tell me that.
Yeah, so but yeah, a lot of my friends and stuff don't like doing hiking and stuff like that. So but I enjoy doing that kind of thing. So yeah, drag me out there all you want.
Yeah, I'm scared. I feel like I would do good for like half a trip. So if a normal hike you go on 30 minutes to an hour, something like that, maybe 2 hours. Okay, longer.
Let's see here. I think on Sunday when I went, it was 2.5 hours, and that was a short trip. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been hiking up at like Hanging Rock and stuff. And
I'm just going to show up to your house. You're going to be in your pajamas. I'm going to drag you out like that. You're going to be in flip-flops the whole entire time.
I don't remember what trail we went down when I was in Hanging Rock last, but I do know that it was about an hour and a half to where the destination was. It was like down towards the water. It took me about an hour and a half to get down there. We hung out a little bit. Well, not an hour and a half to get down there, but there and back walking.
That
probably
sounds
about
about
an
right.
hour and a half.
I could probably go to the peak of Hanging Rock. Like, I used to do like the speed run up Hanging Rock, and I think I could probably do that like all the way up to the top and back in that time.
In about an hour and a half. See, it would kick my ass. Like, that kicked my ass. So
because that's like one of the shorter hikes. That's like just below a mile. That one down to the water.
Yeah, that kicked my ass. So if you don't know where Hanging Rock is, we live in North Carolina.
Shout out to Hanging Rock.
You just look up Hanging Rock Park in North Carolina, and that's what we're talking about. But I actually, unless y'all veto this, I want to talk about football first, just because there's been so much going on.
Yes.
And I knew I had sent it to you. I think we'll do football first. I think that's the best way to do it.
All right.
Because it's just, I feel like it's more interesting than,
So I guess,
than our second topic.
Then we'll just say, if you are a non-football fan listening to this, then skip ahead.
Skip ahead about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If not, then stay around and learn something.
So did you guys hear the rumor as of yesterday?
The rumor, I've heard some stuff this morning, but I haven't heard any rumors.
I saw a post on Twitter about it again today, which makes me think that it's going to come to fruition here in the near future. But we're pursuing the former Seahawks left tackle, Dwayne Brown, right now.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew that there was some talk about that, but I tried not to get too excited because of the whole fact of like, until it's real, it's real. Because what happened with Deshaun Watson just fucking...
Oh yeah, I was so mad about that. Yeah, I was hoping for Watson. I'm like, you know what? Controversy aside, like someone like that, you're pretty much set for years with him at quarterback.
It messed me up. All the misinformation that was like, and the Browns were out, then we were out, and then he goes to the Browns. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I
makes
would
no
agree with that
sense.
statement, unless you are the Browns. I mean, that organization, like,
If there's an organization that can completely ruin Deshaun Watson, it's going to be
it's
Cleveland.
that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cleveland or
they've got a
Jacksonville, one of the
decent
two.
team. They've got a decent team. They've got a good defense. They've got a decent line. They've got good backs. They've got.
But I
well,
can
I
tell
don't know
you-
what they'll do on receiver, but
But I'll tell you the one thing I'm excited about, because he did go to the Browns. I hope that means that Baker might consider coming to Carolina.
Yeah, that's
they picked up Jacoby Brissett. I know that, so they're preparing for some backlash from Baker.
Yeah, I've been incredibly torn on Baker, because what part of me is like feeling like he's going to be that chip on his shoulder kind of guy, and he was playing hurt all year last year apparently, but like just the year before that he led Cleveland to a playoff win in Pittsburgh, and it was like their first playoff win since what, 90?
Almost to an AFC championship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
almost like and
When you play Madden games and simulate the Browns, they always go to the Super Bowl.
Arguably,
Like,
arguably they should have beat the Chiefs in that divisional game. But yeah, and then so he plays hurt one year, and then all of a sudden now they're just like, okay, later. I mean,
Well, if you look at Baker Mayfield's resume, so you really don't know what to get with him, because you had 2 bad years of Browns coaching, 2 good years of Browns coaching. You had a good year with Baker Mayfield and a bad year with Baker Mayfield under their bad coaching, and a bad year with Baker Mayfield and a
Yeah.
good year with Baker Mayfield under their coaching. So, like, how do you evaluate that?
exactly. Part of me feels like, we've went through the mediocre quarterback cycle for the last 2 years, and part of me is like, man, it might be the same with Baker Mayfield. I don't know, but then again, it may not be. He may come in and light it up.
I thought we were a little too harsh on Teddy Bridgewater when we cut him.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
I think at least he could get us back to that point where we were at least competitive, even though we weren't winning that much.
Yeah.
Where I got irritated with Teddy Bridgewater was
Those close losses.
At the end of the
could
season?
not get a game tying or game winning drive going.
at the end of the season, it's like the dude just gave up.
Yeah.
It's almost like you could tell he was playing ball, then he got hurt, and then I think he got
But
scared.
I think at this point in Teddy Bridgewater's career, like, what he is at this point.
He's
You
that
know,
guy
He's not a bad player.
Yeah, he's that guy who's just good enough to get you through until you have like that person who's going to be your face or your like ultimate starting
The
quarterback.
new Tyrod Taylor. Like that's what everybody's
And-
comparing him to.
And I feel bad for Tyrod too, because you look at where he's
Phenomenal
been.
player.
Yeah, everywhere he's been, no team was bad because of Tyrod Taylor, and then like whoever comes in right after him just does amazing
Yeah.
wherever they are.
yeah, he's just and I think
he must be a great mentor.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing that start to move with Teddy. Other than like Teddy didn't get to like even probably meet Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? Other than in football games.
Let's be real. I think it was probably a good thing he didn't meet Sam Darnold. It may have brought his
He's-
numbers down a little bit.
I really don't want to be so hard on Sam Darnold. Don't get me wrong. Like I
will.
know
He
he had
sucks.
some bad play. I know he had some bad play. What I was so excited about getting Sam Darnold is because there's always, and even this year, there's always sparks. There's always sparks of brilliance that you're just like, how in the fuck did he pull that off? But do you think he's just lucky? Is that what you think it is?
I think that Sam Darnold did not have the talent level that was hyped behind him as far as being that early draft pick.
Yeah.
And that he kind of got forced into that role, and people thought he was going to be a lot better than he was.
But how can you see sparks of like good quarterback play out of him?
I think that has to do with what I like to call the effect. Like whenever you see something new and something different, and you're just not expecting it, and then all of a sudden they pull it off. Like usually you can see it whenever a backup QB has to fill in for a game. All of a sudden that backup will look really, really good at first, and then they figure out that backup style and how to adjust for it.
Yeah,
when they start
a
doing
lot of
awful.
times you can't game plan or you don't game plan for a backup.
So you think it's once Sam Darnold starts doing good, they figure him out fairly quickly.
I think that he's predictable in the sense that you know that Sam Darnold can do a lot of things okay, and you pretty much can like see who he starts targeting more. You see where he makes his reads at. Like watching the way he makes decisions last year really bothered me because I'm just like, you always seem to target like the same couple guys, like depending on these routes and how they're running. And defenses straight up said that too, like because they got rid of Joe Brady in the middle of the season because his route calling was so predictable.
Well, and that was an irritation I had. I was kind of hyped on Joe Brady, to be honest with you, and I think you probably remember this here, Nick. It's like his first season, I was like, okay, give him another season. But like even me and you were going like the began happening was just run Christian through the middle, run Christian through the middle,
Yes.
run Christian through the middle, run Christian through the
I
middle.
think Christian McCaffrey being out, not this last year, but the year before, actually helped the rest of our offense because that was the year that Joe Brady looked great because we had like 3 guys with over 1,000 yards from
Yeah.
scrimmage. Yeah, like that was
Yeah.
that year we looked amazing, and that year everyone was like calling us trying to get Joe Brady. And I always find it like a little bit odd whenever multiple sources want to interview somebody and that person does not get a job anywhere else and they stay where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Joe Brady I think he can eventually be a pretty decent like OC or something like that in the NFL. When he was hired on at Carolina, he didn't really have the resume. I mean, he'd never been an
younger.
OC
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, he's young.
You know,
Well, he had to. I think he was an OC before, but that was in college.
he'd never been an OC in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's been under Matt Rule for like 4 or 5 years before that, though. I think that was his resume, and Rule just brought him in.
Yeah, because he knew the style, and I don't think it. And to be honest, I don't think like you were saying. I think Joe Brady can be good, but I think we were becoming very predictable, and then when players we started getting inventive when players started getting hurt, and I don't think you should necessarily think that way. You know, it's not. It's really easy to be consistent and good, but also when you start to see that that's not working, like at some point you got to make a change, and it's got to be in that game, not after it every time.
Yeah. Well, and I think in the last 2 years that Matt Rule's been the head coach, I mean, we have got to be the worst third quarter team I've almost ever
absolutely.
seen. Probably.
So-
I mean, it's stupid. How
We're close
So
to
people
it.
bring up that stat a lot, and here's my argument back to that: of I don't really mind as much that we're the worst third quarter team because you could also look at teams that are quote unquote the worst second quarter team, but those are usually the teams that have great turnarounds by the end of their games and are still winning most of their games. I don't necessarily think that the fact that it applies to a single quarter really is that bad for us, other than we're just not that good of as a team in general right now.
Yeah.
When the fourth quarter stat ain't great either, so that's the main issue.
But that's kind of the point I'm making.
The third quarter stat's worse.
I don't think
but-
we should focus us more on the third part as much as we should just, okay, this team should be better in general. Please, God, do something.
Yeah, it should be better in general. But we also had a lot of games where we hit halftime just pretty good, doing pretty good, and then just that defense just and I really don't think it's the case of like, you know, at halftime they're going in there, they're having the big talk, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the case. I think coaches are talking to each other and players are calming the hell down. They're they're working themselves up. They're trying to get ready to go back out there. But I think the game plan does change, and the Panthers seem to not realize that. Like, Panthers coaching are just like, well, let's do what worked, and then once you figure out what worked isn't working now, you should change something. But instead, we just consistently go for the same shit. Like, it's like it's not happening.
Yeah.
Like,
I think somebody pointed out how bad the NFC South is as far as their pressure and D-lines go, just in general. Like, not just us, but all the teams.
yeah.
And the Panthers used to be a pretty D-line heavy team as far as, like, us consistently
always
getting
a
to the
defensive
QB.
team.
Yeah. But I think we need to get back to that mentality. Like, everyone
It looks
keeps...
like we're going to.
Well, even
Hopefully so.
this
It
past
looks like
year,
we're
I mean,
going to.
we were like first or second in the league in like sacks, weren't we?
Yeah, we were good. And that was mostly Brian and
Brian
Hassan.
and Hassan.
But that was the point I was getting to, though. Like, I feel like we either need to focus on one of two ways, and when it comes to the upcoming draft, either O-line heavy or D-line heavy, which in free agency we've been going very O-line heavy.
Which is good.
So I
Which
hope,
is what everybody wanted. So.
but I hope that's a sign we're going to get very D-line heavy in the draft then.
Well, and seeing them pick up Matt Ioannidis, that is an exciting. I don't
That
know
was a
if
great
y'all are
signing.
excited
Yes,
about that,
that
but
was a
I'm
good signing.
really excited about that because him and Derek Brown there. Oh my God!
Oh, you mean Dwayne Brown?
Did I mix up a name?
Derek Brown's our defensive tackle. Dwayne Brown's the left tackle I was mentioning earlier.
Oh, I thought we were going to play Matt Ioannidis as a defensive tackle. Maybe I read that wrong.
Matt Ioannidis. He's not the center. We got it. Is he?
No, I don't think
No.
he's an O-line guy. I thought he was a defensive tackle.
I remember seeing that name, but I remember we signed a center and we signed a guard. And I looked at their stats and they were
Austin
both good.
Corbett was
Yeah.
the,
Look
the
it up.
guard that we signed.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
guard
maybe
we
I'm
got.
mixing up names. Yeah, because he played. Maybe I'm a liar.
I think the fact that we're going O-line heavy in free agency, but that kind of tells me if we're not getting a quarterback in free agency, we might take one at 6.
I think I'm thinking of the wrong player. I think you are right, Austin. I think Matt Ioannidis is a defensive tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a defensive tackle. But what's cool, I think you're thinking of the O-line guys. The O-line guys we are picking up. I didn't directly know who they were, but I kind of looked up stats, and they look good. They look decent.
Yeah, I saw the one we got from the Chargers. The guard we got, he's a very good guard.
Yeah. So and what's his name? Brady Christensen? Is that the guy we drafted?
He was a rookie last year. He was out of position, but he did decent.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about seeing him open up a little bit because what he played good.
Scotty Fitterer made a comment, and I find it funny whenever your O-line coach and your general manager both make this comment of why he didn't understand why Christensen was not getting more snaps at left tackle. And I'm thinking to myself, I think that was both him and our O-line coach's polite way of saying, Matt Rule, why did you play this guy out of position all year?
Yeah, exactly.
Something to do with his arm length or something like that.
He says he didn't like his
he's
arm and hand length.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't think it mattered because he was doing his job.
Yeah.
He was doing his job, so let him do.
And if you look at his stats when he played left tackle, he wasn't exactly outstanding, but he was okay for a rookie. I mean, he was doing all right.
As many guys as we had going down too, that's what confused the hell out of me is they were hesitant to even throw him into a game at all. In that it didn't sit well with me.
I think that sometimes coaching mentalities can sometimes hurt teams like that.
Yeah.
Because we had a safety that was like that last year who did well in the preseason. And in a rotation, he played pretty well for us, too. It was Kenny Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I remember hearing coaching comments about Kenny Robinson. They said, oh, well, when in practice, we just didn't see anything all that special. But he does have a way of somehow managing to always get to the ball. And I'm like, so why not play him?
Yeah, why not let him do that, And Jeremy Chin was doing good in the linebacker role, so...
That's what I was talking to you not too long ago about. We were talking about if we ended up getting Deshaun Watson, if Jeremy Chin was going to be in the deal or Brian Burns or something like that. And I was like, well, Chin, last year they put him at safety, but his rookie year
full time, yeah.
Yeah, I think safety's his original position. That's what he was drafted as.
He did great in his rookie year as he was like a linebacker / corner.
I think that was just different defensive schemes because last year I think we were trying to have guys in more assigned roles, and it worked out very, very well for Brian Burns because he pretty much always played defensive end at that point. He never played linebacker. But for Jeremy Chin, he kind of regressed. I wouldn't say he did bad, but playing in that safety role, it's harder for him to get those big plays like he was when he was rotating into being a linebacker.
You just do as a safety because, it's just like anything else. If you're that far away from the ball, then unless the ball comes to you, then...
But I feel like with that Xavier Woods signing, we're probably going to see more Chin in a linebacker role again.
I'm kind of and especially letting Hassan Reddick go. We're gonna have to see
again. That's why I'm hoping they go very D-line heavy in the draft.
And we signed a linebacker too, didn't we? From the Raiders.
We did.
Yes.
We signed a Raiders linebacker, which I didn't. I'll be honest with you, I didn't look him up at all.
He's I can go ahead and tell you right now, he's probably going to be a liability.
Remember the last time we got a linebacker from the Raiders?
It's going to be the same situation.
Tahir Whitehead.
Yeah.
Good Lord, he was awful.
You know something funny? I was talking to a friend of mine about this last year. We got a Bengals linebacker. I want to say it was either 1 season or 2 seasons ago. And we cut him because he was just being kind of average. And then he went to the Bengals and they got to a Super Bowl with them. And I'm like, of course, that's exactly how it went. Yeah.
He just fit that better, I guess. Well, it probably was better players around him.
Actually, I think that was his best year, the year they went to the Super Bowl. And he was like one of their starting linebackers. Yeah. Crazy.
I feel like that happens with a lot of guys that leave Carolina and go to a different team.
You look at, what's his name? Something Apple? That dude
Eli
that turned
Apple.
into
Apple.
toast? Eli Apple, there you go.
Well, he was doing okay, I guess, until the Super Bowl, and then he let it go.
Well, he only did decent. I remember looking at that. I was like, did this guy really do that good?
No, he did not.
If you look at his playoff games, yes, he managed to get the ball in, I think, all of the playoff games. He managed to either intercept or cause somebody to fumble in which he got the ball. But then you see him just in the Super Bowl, and he just got trashed by God.
Was he covering Cooper Kupp?
He was covering Cooper Kupp. Yeah. That's what it was.
Well, let's be real.
When Cooper Kupp was running slot,
yeah.
When Cooper Kupp was running slot, but the difference here is Eli Apple was drafted much higher than Cooper Kupp was. I don't think Cooper Kupp was drafted.
But you're talking about the guy who was the number 1 receiver in the NFL this season. Yeah,
he absolutely stomped his ass. But either way, in Panthers news at least, I like to see the changes that are being made. I am still slightly concerned about the QB situation because it's looking more and more like we're going to draft Kenny Pickett. That's what it's looking like.
So, controversial opinion, and this is the one that I think we're going to be very, very torn upon. Okay, so at this point, McCaffrey. We signed Dante Foreman.
I was actually going to bring that up in a second.
At this point, his injury history, how much his contract is, I'd be very comfortable if they traded him, honestly.
Well, here's the thing. First off, I'm not trading him for anything less than a first.
Hold on. I have a counter argument to that. Would you trade him for another player of high quality, though? Like somebody that you knew could come in immediately and be a starter and be a playmaker for you?
Throw a comparable.
Who would be on the trade block?
Yeah, who would be worth it?
Let's say someone like, I'm just going to use this as a name, not necessarily because I want them, but more like if you were trading him for somebody like, so Amari Cooper just got traded. Like someone like him, I think it would be a comparable trade.
I definitely wouldn't do it, though.
Nah.
You're talking Amari value, though.
Yes, I'm talking about that value level, yeah.
Well, you know what he got traded for, right? He got traded for a 6th-round pick, pretty much.
Well, if we're trading Christian McCaffrey, then yes, I agree with Nick in that aspect of I at least want either a couple of picks, like a couple of like decent like 2nd-round or 3rd-round picks, or a 1st-round pick to trade for McCaffrey, then yeah.
Here's what I think. Because either way, I mean, even if you trade him, now I don't know how that works as far as still having to pay his contract or whatever, but
if you trade them outright, you're only, I think, contracted to pay their guaranteed money, and the other team takes over the rest of their contract.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much is guaranteed in Christian's contract, but so you're like you said, we signed Deontay Foreman Dante. I don't know how to say
Dante Foreman. Yeah,
Dante Foreman. Okay, and then we got
which is a good pickup.
We got Chuba Hubbard too, which he looked really good last year. And then I think did we let Amir Abdul go?
Yes.
Okay.
He walked.
Abdul walked.
Okay. But I think so. You can have Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, and you can have Christian, but Christian can do well as a slot receiver too. I think you can.
Yeah, I was preaching that to Branch a couple days ago.
And I think that's an okay role for him to be in as far as like him not taking that injury risk as much, and I think is utilized better as a receiver than a running option.
Yeah,
and with
he's good at both, but I think
somebody
he's
like Foreman
more effective.
And with somebody like Foreman in our backfield, like taking those like rushing snaps, then yeah, that would work. But again, that's a lot of money to pay like a guy running in that receiver role.
Well, I mean, but
if he changed the game enough, I think it would make a difference.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you on the whole trade McCaffrey situation here. The way I think about it is, if we cannot find a solid QB, we have no business letting him go this year.
I mean, yeah.
Period.
At that point, then yeah, we basically have nothing.
Yeah, we have Christian. So if we're going to put
he's
it on his back,
as of right
here's
now,
the year to do it.
Most teams, the face of your franchise is your quarterback, right? I mean, the Panthers have nobody else to be that besides Christian McCaffrey
or DJ. That's it.
Yeah, we just gave DJ Moore that big extension,
and he deserved it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I love DJ.
3rd highest paid receiver in the league.
Yeah,
he deserves
but you look at his rookie contract. I mean, 4 seasons in a row, 1,200 plus yards. So
yeah, he's earned every minute of it, or every dollar, dime.
I think we keep McCaffrey this year, and maybe just equate his injuries to bad luck, because I mean, a lot of them weren't necessarily contact injuries. They were.
There's only a few players that are going to work as hard as he does.
Yeah. So keep him this year. Hope that he stays healthy. If he doesn't, then you. I mean, seriously, then you might have to, weigh your options. But at that point, then too, his trade value will probably go down even more.
Well, then what do you do? But that's what I'm saying. If we keep him, then what's the plan for QB? What's the plan for QB?
Draft.
I don't know.
Draft.
Draft.
That's what it sounds like is going to happen, but I don't necessarily say I advocate.
Because I think if we were going after Baker Mayfield, I feel like I would have heard a notification and maybe by Friday, the time people listen to this, who knows what'll be the situation will be then.
Well, he wanted to go to the Colts, but what I heard, and this is just a rumor, it's not confirmed or nothing, but what I heard is that the Browns said that they were not trading Baker Mayfield. They declined his basically came out and said no,
Well, I guess he could.
You come in, you fight for this job, basically.
And you know why I think that is? I think they're worried that Watson might have some legal issues coming up in the season.
I think that's too well, and that's exactly why I think they signed Jacoby Brissett.
I was about to say,
because if
Baker's not going to be a backup.
Well, but what I'm trying to say, well, I think what they're wanting is Baker to come in and battle Deshaun for that. But if
He's going to lose.
Yeah, he's going to lose. But what we're speculating here when we talk about the Deshaun Watson situation, he still has 22 civil, cases to go through.
Which I'm going to say this as well. Deshaun Watson never should have had any actual criminal charges against him. Everything about that should have all been civil suit from the very beginning.
Based off of what they had, it all should have been civil. But
Yeah.
the criminal being dropped, it makes sense. When we talk about those 22 civil suits, when we talk about other players that have done similar things, not saying that Deshaun did it, I'm just saying gotten in trouble for similar things, he could still, he hasn't received any punishment from the NFL yet. He could still be out 12 games next year. We don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how the NFL. So I think they're preparing for the worst.
The no fun league. Yeah.
Well, I don't think the NFL is going to. If he does get suspended, I don't think they're going to do 12 games. They might do 6 at the most. And even if they did 6, he'd probably appeal it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. That's what I'm trying to say. Is like we just don't know. So them signing Jacoby Brissett tells me that they're prepared for, because it sounds like Baker might pull a Deshaun Watson and just be like, well, I'm just not going to fucking play. And
You make it sound like that was Watson's choice, though.
what?
Like just not playing.
Oh, no, well, no, that was his choice. He could have played.
He could have played
that
last
was
year.
his choice.
I was under the impression that with the pending lawsuit, like that, he was told he couldn't play. Though.
No. He told the Texans he did not want to play. That's what. Okay, so this is kind of what started the whole controversy here, Branch. It's theorized. We can't confirm anything, but it's theorized that Deshaun Watson wanted more say so over the Texans organization. They were picking a coach, all that shit, and they basically told him they would respect him in that and let him know information. And they didn't. He found out kind of who the personnel was going to be. I can't remember names or anything. I don't know anybody over there. But he found out personnel on Twitter. And that pissed him off. So then that's what started the whole big shit. And then all of a sudden, there's a shit ton of controversy about him in these Instagram masseuses. And it very well could have happened. I have no idea.
Like some of this is coming together. I do think I remember hearing more about this. But I thought it was more rumor than anything.
Yeah, and the attorney that filed all this paperwork is the neighbor of the owner of the Texans, from what I heard. So, since I'm not saying that the Texans created this issue to make Deshaun look bad, that's just a speculation. I like looking into theories like that. Again, I just want to make it clear. We know nothing. I'm just telling you what falls on the internet and then enters my head. But with that all being said, he just basically said, fuck you. Like he just decided he's not playing. So he sat on the bench and collected a check last year. But with his decision, I think you were saying this too about the Browns, with the Browns doing this to Baker Mayfield, would you want to play for an organization that would do that to their franchise quarterback?
Thinking of it from Deshaun's point of view.
Why did he choose the Browns other than Amari?
Money.
Well, money. That's probably because there's the team that was going to pay him the most.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess would he know what the deals are that the Texans, what they would receive? Or would he even care?
I probably think he just didn't care at that point, really.
Yeah, he probably didn't even care.
From what I understood was the reason that he didn't choose us or Atlanta or New Orleans was because none of us were fully willing to guarantee his third and fourth year, and the Browns were. I think that's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. And I'm looking at the Texans too. Honestly, I think they walked out the best in the situation because they now have cleared out so much cap space, and they got so many picks from that trade.
It's time to rebuild.
Yeah, and they needed those picks too because their previous manager put them in that bad position.
Yeah, Davis Mills. Right. They seem fine with continuing with him for a little bit. If he doesn't, prove himself, obviously he's out. But
if he doesn't, not this coming draft, but the following draft, there's a lot of good QB options in that draft.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is it sounds like the more I hear, which I don't know who effectively has this sort of say so. I guess it's our general manager, but it seems that Tepper really, really, really likes Kenny Pickett. Like that every report that comes back or every report that I read, they just and I thought he was okay. I just don't think he's.
I'm not
great.
really big on Kenny Pickett, but I am also to that point of everything I kept saying we should draft or we should go for, we are signing in free agency, so I'm a little bit torn on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if don't take Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or whoever you're going to have at 6. Don't take them if you are even the slightest bit unsure. Only take them if you just
Best by
have
position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
Draft by position.
if they fell to us at 5th, I'd be all right with either of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're better than a 5th round pick. But
Wait,
if
you think they're going to go? Well, we got 6, but you think they're going to go before 6?
No, I'm talking about a 5th round pick, like not a 1st round pick.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm saying like if one of them fell that low, then I think you draft a quarterback.
Well, there's
But
no way they're
So
gonna
you don't-
fall
but
that
you don't
low,
wanna-
though.
you-
That's what I'm trying to say. Is there's just no, they're the good ones in this draft. There's only really 2.
So you don't think we should take one at 6? You think we should try to wait?
Yeah, I think we should wait for next year if we're going to draft a
Oh,
QB.
you're just talking about next year in general. Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer, especially with the Colts, committing to Matt Ryan. I would prefer us, try to pursue Baker. I kind of think that's a great idea, actually.
If you can get Baker on the cheap,
I mean, he may be a pity party. I don't know. He
Baker,
may
I
be a
think, is the
child.
best 1-year solution.
give him a one. Yeah, can they sign him to a 1-year deal? I mean,
I think his rookie contract is for at least 1 more year.
Well,
So-
it depends what you work out with the Browns, and the Browns have already came out and said that they are not willing to get rid of him. So,
well, I mean, but they got to do something. How are they going to pay anybody? They just got. They're paying Deshaun Watson a crap ton of money
yeah,
now.
I have no idea what their plan is, but them signing Jacoby Brissett means that they're prepared for Baker not to play. Because if Deshaun has to sit out a couple games, they
I think
got to
it's,
have
If I'm,
somebody.
if I'm the Browns, I just let him go.
this
I
might
mean,
be one of those things, though. I think this is a negotiation tactic. I think that they are saying that making these comments about Baker Mayfield to increase his value, so that some other team
That
will
could
give them that much more for him.
Could be.
Yeah,
They
I
could
mean,
have
don't
Sam Darnold.
don't be a sucker. Like
They could have. I think Baker's worth it. I think he's definitely, he may be the 16th best quarterback in the league, but I really
It's better than Sam Darnold at number 30.
yes.
Yeah.
And I do think that what he did with the Browns, as Nick was saying, it can't be ignored. That the dude played hurt a lot and
he
didn't
took
do
a-
half bad.
And he took a team that was bottom of the barrel, laughing stock of the league, and made them actually
Yeah.
First they were being talked about, and then they actually looked pretty good there for about a season or two.
Yeah, and they were a duo run sort of team, so I can see he was in more of a game manager role, but I really don't think him and OBJ's connection could ever exist. I don't think that was necessarily one player or the other. I just think they just couldn't connect.
well, the year
did
they
fine with Jarvis Landry.
when they went to the playoffs, that was when OBJ was hurt.
Yeah.
So
I don't.
mean,
I really think that their problem was it was probably chemistry.
I think it's more of an OBJ thing than a Baker thing, though.
Yeah. Well, and the Rams, I'll be honest with you. When I watched, the first game with OBJ in it, they were definitely forcing him the ball. Like Matt Stafford was forcing that man the ball, and
they
I
lost,
think
right? They lost to the
they lost that game.
49ers. Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened in the Super Bowl where it's like, let's get him a touchdown, and then it doesn't matter what happens as long as he gets a touch. And there's probably some guarantees that OBJ wanted before he committed to a team.
Hey, but it worked out for him. He got his ring.
Yeah, he got his ring. He got a Super Bowl touchdown.
Tore his
he got
ACL in the
hurt.
process.
Yeah, he got hurt. But I really think, and Matt Stafford's I think he's one of those guys that I think Satan could get along with him. I don't think there's anybody that would say a harsh word about Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford's like Andrew Luck, where he's just
Yeah.
incredibly likable guy.
Yeah, he's just a good dude. But with the whole Baker thing, I do think that players kind of have to connect in a certain sense. That's why we were all hopeful about Sam Darnold, because he was familiar with Robbie, and as I was telling Branch this the other night too. You think of all the catches or all the throws that were thrown to Robbie last year. If they were caught, what we would be saying differently.
Our offense would at least be, I wouldn't say great, but we would at least be in those mid-ranks somewhere.
Yeah,
probably.
Dude.
Sam Darnold would not look near as
Do y'all
bad
remember
if
the,
it wasn't for the Robbie drops.
Do y'all remember the Minnesota game last year?
Oh, that made me
Where
so
we
mad.
went, it was the only game we went into overtime with. But I actually went back and rewatched that game the other day, and there was the one that the pass was thrown to Robbie's chest. I mean, Sam actually threw a decent pass,
He threw a bunch of them.
Yeah, he dropped it. But even later on in the game, he threw one straight to DJ, and DJ dropped it. And I'm just like, good Lord, guys! Like, can there be one day where everything just connects perfectly? Like,
Yeah. And there were
that happens those 2 or 3 games we win every year.
yeah.
Well, there was a lot of questionable throws to DJ last year too, and like double or triple coverage where he caught it too. So I'm not as hard on DJ because he seems to pull it through when it makes.
Yeah, if you look at his stats, he always gets like somewhere between 50, 100 yards and maybe a touchdown.
Yeah,
every
he
game.
fights for that damn ball.
Well, the point that I completely gave up on Sam Darnold and was like, this guy's just not it, was in the New York game last year. We were kind of driving, and for a while it was like a 5-3 game. They were beating us like 5-3, and there was a point later on in the game where we were kind of driving, and we're about the 20-25 yard line. Sam Darnold heaves it to the corner of the end zone, nowhere near the receiver, but in the area of
Such a
like
Sam
4
Darnold thing.
Giants, and I was like, Sam,
He just gave it to him.
what was that? What are you doing? Like, that was the point. I was like, I am out on this guy.
Yeah, if you looked at his passing stats last year, like he had the worst touchdown to interception ratio in the whole league.
Yeah. It was and then I saw the game before we signed Cam. I was there. It was the New England game, and he threw like 3 interceptions in that game. One of them was a pick 6.
Hey, he was seeing ghosts, man.
Yeah.
And I know y'all are huge Cam fans, but that was the only time when I was just like, hell yeah, Cam's back. I'll be honest with you. I'm not. It's not that Cam is bad. Don't get me wrong. We kind of did him dirty. We needed to apologize for it. We didn't. I was better forgetting about that, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the most excited I was in mine.
But when he came back, I was like,
yeah.
okay, let's get rid of Sam.
Last year, I was the most excited that game right after it was announced that he came back, and they kept throwing him on those plays against the Cardinals, and I'm like, oh my god, yes, we might actually be competitive again. And then immediately afterwards, it just fell off.
Well, he played really well in the Washington game. I was there at that game.
He played good.
And then
we lost that game, but yeah,
That
he
was
played
good ball.
well. Yeah,
That was good ball.
I
He threw for like 200 yards that game.
Yeah, I
was surprised.
And I even still think, I mean, if you didn't want to go Baker or draft, like, if you wanted, because Cam's a free agent, I guess technically now.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, you could get him really cheap and wanted to actually give him an off season and try for 1 year or something. That's
don't
an
think
option
Cam-
too, I guess.
I don't
The
think
thing
Cam
is-
would do it.
Yeah,
Cam might not want to come back, but.
Well, not only that, but we're paying Sam Darnold $18 million, and we're basically begging Cam Newton to come back and play for us for nothing because we can't pay him that much more because we're paying Darnold that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And Cam's already came out and said like he'd prefer to just be a backup for a winning team. Like he's at that point in his career where it's just like he knows he's good. He knows he's good enough to play the game.
Yeah,
But he
or
knows,
any team can bring him into a situational type of thing where he's short yardage.
Yeah, I don't know
or-
why someone hasn't
like-
thought about putting him on tight end yet. Like
think
just
he'd be a
doing
I
the
think he'd be a-
Taysom Hill thing. Like
I disagree with that. I think he'd be a better running back.
better running. Well, that's kind of what I was thinking though. Is like why not use Cam as a gadget player? 'Cause
Gadget.
he
yeah,
can
that's
throw
the word I was
ball.
looking for. Is a gadget player.
You know he can throw the ball. It's not that he's great at it, but if a team's not expecting it, they're going to let him play good. Like he's going to get at least one good play out of on somebody. Like
I believe Bill Belichick put it the best whenever he signed Cam Newton. He said that he was tired of preparing his defense to play against Cam Newton, so that's
Yeah.
why he signed him.
so that's why he signed him. That makes sense. Well, he's a different kind of player for sure, and I think he would be a good option to just get through a year. But I don't think we're going to be able to get him. So I'm kind of on the fence because I really don't want to see Jimmy G come here and then just do the same Jimmy G shit, where he plays decent ball and then he doesn't, or then he gets hurt.
Well, I mean, it's like, and he's playing on a good team too.
Yeah,
And
he was
And if
playing
you
on a
look-
better team.
And if you look around at like the free agency that's happening right now, all the stuff like it's been very, very quiet about Jimmy G right now, which is very odd to me.
yeah,
well,
yeah.
he just had shoulder surgery.
Yeah, so I almost wonder if he's even still, able to play. The same thing with Kirk Cousins. Like, I'm just not.
Oh well, Kirk Cousins got a big deal from Minnesota though.
Yeah.
Did he resign?
Yeah, $35 million
Okay.
single year.
Okay, he resigned.
His
Big money.
agent is incredible.
Yeah.
The amount of money that he's
man.
been able to get Kirk over his career.
Is it just because I knew the Vikings were like not like super attached to like keeping him, but at the same time, like, did the Vikings just go like, we just don't want to deal with the QB situation right now, we'll just keep Kirk?
But the thing
Probably.
about Kirk Cousins is never really that bad. He's just like,
He's just on losing teams.
yeah, he's like, if you look at his stats, like he always puts up good numbers. He seems like some guy you would want to have running your team because he does just that good of a job at it.
Statistically, he looks amazing because he's consistently within the top what
10 at least.
10.
Yeah.
So he's consistently there, but it's like the dude just can't ever get anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the teams he's on. And the Vikings really didn't look bad. When he was in Washington,
Well, I don't know.
he didn't look horrible.
They definitely looked pretty bad last year. They were bad enough to fire their coach.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like, the plays were there. I think it was definitely probably defense that kind of fucked them. But is there any other Panthers news or football news y'all want to chat about?
I
I
don't
think
know.
we can segment.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to be. I knew that was going to be a chatty subject. So, kind of wanted to go ahead and get that. out of
Keep
the way.
pounding, I guess.
Yeah. Just keep pounding and hopefully we don't make a bad decision.
Hopefully this year it's other teams not pounding us. It's us.
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to just
Hopefully
be.
we ate the bitch this year.
I just want to be average this year,
Just
at
wanna be
least.
average.
Like,
So I did say that I wanted to kind of chit chat about this. I don't know how much can really be said, but I think more on opinion, I think is a great way to think about this. So don't feel like obligated to like have to know a whole bunch, but just kind of in what you know. Obviously gas prices did increase. I actually saw that they went down a little bit. Nick, you just went to the pump. Is it closer to $4 than it was?
yeah. It's funny. The other night, I think it was Saturday or I was in Moxville, and I was at the Sheets there, and it was $3.99.
Okay.
There.
Okay, you
But
got it
when I
under
was
$4.
I was at Sheets a little while ago in King, and it was $4.13. So
Okay. Well,
little
it had got up to like $4.40, and then it come down closer to $4, which is good to see. And obviously, there's a reason for that too, and I think we'll get into that. But kind of, I know in the last podcast we talked with Needham about just war in general, because Ukraine and Russia went to war, but it was kind of more at the time when it had happened, or closer to the time when it started. And I think we were already 2 weeks. Yeah, the first, I think the war was declared a week after like our podcast release, when we first started this podcast. So then, like a week later,
it was a couple. It was like a couple days.
Was it only a couple days?
Yeah, because we did our first one on a Monday night, and then it was that Wednesday night when it was announced that Russia invaded.
Yeah, so it was like right before that podcast released, actually. But I'm kind of more just wanting to talk about, obviously when war occurs in the world, I can't speak today. It's going to affect just about everybody around it. Inflation in general, it can't just be gas prices. But how has this affected y'all, and kind of what's your opinion on when you think about those sort of things? Whoever wants to kind of answer
Let
that.
Branch take the floor first.
Yeah.
Okay. I
What
was
do you
actually
think,
going to let
Branch?
you, but okay. To be honest, I work from home, so it's not really as much as far as like my needs that I notice as far as that goes.
So you haven't noticed really more energy costs. sort of situation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the last time I filled up my tank, yeah, it was definitely a lot more expensive than it was the time before that. But I mostly get out to have fun nowadays. So every single time I like want to go do something, I don't really think about the cost that much, like as closely, because I want to get out of the house anyway. So
Exactly.
I'm like, yeah, at that point, like, yeah, I want to go do something. Who cares?
But even on like groceries or just food in general, you know,
And-
if you eat out, have you noticed any changes there or anything like that?
It really just depends on where I go. Like, I'm pretty sure if you like are smart enough about it, you could probably find the places that you're not seeing nearly as much of a change.
Yeah.
But I mean, over time, yeah, I can like say that. I can say that it's more expensive to go out now than it was 5 years ago. It was
Absolutely.
more expensive then and than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm like a math and numbers guy in general, though, and people talk about gas prices, and that's one of the things that kind of bothers me because they seem to always want to blame it on one particular like person or one particular company. And
Yeah.
if you look at like oil prices versus the cost of gas, like what we're paying for barrels of oil versus the markup is higher now than it was in like our last gas crisis back in 2008 was.
Yeah.
And there's not really a good correlation for that because you're like, okay, well, I mean, the cost of our like crude oil is cheaper. Like, why is the price of
Yeah.
gas that much more expensive? Like right now at this moment. Or if you talk about the war in Russia and people talk about how much oil we were getting for Russia, and that was the reason for the spike of increase. I'm like, well, less than 10% of our oil comes from Russia.
Exactly.
And not only that, that's not even factoring all these other countries. Their gas prices skyrocketed. And those countries have like completely different trade agreements than what we have.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to affect everybody differently.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
there's just like trying to make like that much sense out of it. It's definitely too expensive. Like I'm not sure what maybe like our trade agreements are. Maybe those need to be restructured and negotiated so they affect us like the people in a better way.
So you would agree that, you know, it's a little more complicated than what everybody seems to be trying to make it.
Yeah, like, and that's kind of the thing. Like, again, people, and I hear it used the most in political discussions where it's just like
course.
the cost of living, gas mostly, and just general cost of living, like being right behind it. That's always what they use to try to say, like, oh, we're gonna get us back on track, we're gonna get better, and things like that. And I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like, realistically, things are gonna get more expensive no matter what we do.
Yep. And you're going to make less money for it too.
Mm-hmm.
That's and not that you realistically make less money, but just inflation in general is
Yeah.
going to cause you to make less money.
Yeah,
Because your paycheck's not. Well, I mean, your paycheck could go up even, you know, $3 an hour more now, and you still wouldn't be caught up.
exactly.
You still wouldn't be caught up to inflation, you know, and it would still be rising, you know. You know, as far as grocery, well, I knew we kind of talked about your groceries last time, but you know, anything else that you've seen kind of change or anything like that?
Well, I mean, you know, as far as gas is concerned, I feel like, you know, when I first started driving, I got my license in 2010. You know, I feel like gas prices were this price.
They were.
when like around
They
that
were.
time.
And
So
that was technically wartime.
yeah, so I mean, I feel like I've seen this before, you know, and everybody's like freaking out about it and stuff like that. And I mean, rightfully so. You don't want to. Nobody's gonna be happy about gas prices going up, but I mean, you know, at the same time, like I said, I feel like I've dealt with this before. I can get through it. You know, I guess. I mean, as long as I have steady income coming in.
Humongous of a worry.
And I'm one of those guys. I never fill up my car for whatever reason. I'm putting
he rides on 20s.
Yeah, I'm doing like 20, 25 or something like that. You know, and just I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, it about made me sick when I filled up my tank, and it was higher. So when payday rolled around, I probably should have done what you're doing. When payday rolled around, I was just like, look, I need to put gas in the truck. I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up. And I was
You drive a
creeping on
bigger
the line.
vehicle than both of us.
Yeah.
Yes. I drive a V8. It's a 5.8 liter, and which is smaller than the biggest engine you can get from Chevy in that truck, but at the same time, it's still a honking V8. And I actually stopped the pump. I didn't want it to fill up. I stopped it at 95, and I was like, it's not hitting 100. I'm not letting it hit 100.
Not getting to triple digits.
Yeah, you ain't getting that from me today. But as far as you know, also too, kind of Branch touched upon this. You know, what's your perspective on, kind of cause. I mean, the cause of this. Do you directly think this is because of the war, or do you think it's because of, Joe Biden?
Well, the
As
war.
everybody seems to think it is.
The war didn't help, for sure. But I mean, they were already steadily rising before that even happened.
Yeah.
I think, you can't. I don't think with any president, I don't think you can directly, like, if gas prices are rising or lowering. I don't think it's just directly because of the president. I think, or whoever's in power. I think it's like, a kind of a trickle down effect.
Okay.
Like I think there's certain things, certain other people in office.
Surprised we all agree on this.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm surprised.
Well, I just think there's a lot of people just don't have a lot of common sense about it. It's like either this guy's guilty of this, like Trump's guilty of this, Biden's guilty of this. Like, it's directly
senator,
their fault.
Whoever,
like,
it's your politician you voted in or whatever.
I can say that I've noticed on those gas pumps now, I always see that same little Joe Biden sticker where it's like him pointing, saying the phrase, "I did that." And I usually kind of roll my eyes.
I've taken pictures of those. I think they're cute.
But I'll tell you one that made me laugh, though. It's like, again, I saw it on the gas pump, and I did my usual thing, rolled my eyes, okay, whatever, whenever I saw it. But instead of pointing directly to the gas pump price, a bird shit on the pump, and he was pointing right at the bird, shit, and that made me laugh.
I shit on the pump.
Yeah, I saw one at a local business. I'm not going to spout it off for the sheer fact of nobody needs to bring their political bullshit into this, but it was a restaurant, and it was on the register.
Oh, yeah.
So it was basically saying like if our prices have increased, this is the reason.
Well, look,
and I think you do have to realistically think that any politician that votes on any sort of bill or can have a certain amount of power is going to have an effect on every part of your governmental life, and it's going to include money, because that's, currency's part of a nation. But at the same time, you can't go out and just think that blaming the one individual is, one, going to fix your issue, or two, thinking that they are the actual, end all be all of fixing, of what happened, of what caused your increase, or why you don't like a law or something like that. Like they have power. They definitely have power.
I like to use the expression, I think that if anyone fully 100% believes that a politician has their own personal beliefs, and they think that they are that concerned about that one particular person, I think that they are definitely lying to themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And they definitely do have power, and you should hold them accountable. That is something you should do for a government official. It doesn't matter what level they're at. Any sort of government official, should be held at that standard. If a lady's giving you hell at the DMV, you should be able to tell your congressman that you want help with that, or whoever the officials over that is. You should be able to voice your opinions, and if enough people do it, it'll be fixed. They'll eventually want you to stop complaining. But thinking that one individual is going to be able to fix that, you may say to your official, look, there's got to be an easier way to do this, or what have you. I'll tell you that, to give you an example, and I'm not going to say who the politician is, but again with politics. But my mother is disabled. Y'all both know this. We were having trouble getting her disability. It was pretty obvious that she had the disability. There's plenty of doctors confirming this. We didn't need. There shouldn't have been a long wait on this issue, but obviously you got to wait a little bit because they got to process paperwork. They got to talk to doctors. They got to do their own evaluations. There's stuff you got to go through, but they should have started it quicker than 4 years. It shouldn't have taken 4 years to get that approved. It shouldn't have. You know what got it approved? Within 3 months.
You told me it was like a psychological evaluation or something like that. It was something weird.
You know what started that process though? My mom called a public official's office. She didn't talk to them, but she talked to the secretary, and I'll be damned if she didn't get her acceptance letter in like 2 weeks, and then they did 2 evaluations on her, and what really got her disabled wasn't even her blindness. It was her sleep apnea, which a lot of Americans have sleep apnea. So if y'all disabled and have sleep apnea and don't work, oh my God, like, because I mean we're big people, there's going to be people with sleep apnea, but the other thing was that her psychological health, that she just could not work with other people. Like, that's what they told her. And she's like, well, I've been working with other people my entire life.
Yeah.
I've always been in a position of that. But they were just saying that was, they did not think she would work well with others. And if she did have to work in a place, she would have to have, after every 30 minutes, she would have to have a 15-minute break. That is the only way she could get through the day.
Which is kind of, I don't think hilarious is the right word. It's actually kind of crappy in the sense of, don't worry, this woman was not legally or physically able to drive herself to work.
That's what stopped her from doing it, is because she was an IT specialist and she's having trouble seeing the damn computer screen. How are you supposed to do your job if you can't work? I mean, she was required to open computers. How can she replace RAM if she don't know where it's at?
Yeah.
There's only so much feeling around in a computer you can do before you kill yourself. Like, you'll touch something wrong or spark something. Anyways, point of the matter is, calling your official does make a difference. But what I'm trying to say is that, that public official, isn't directly over the acceptance of disability in this state. But they did have the connections. All that secretary had to do, I bet it wasn't even the senator. I'll bet it wasn't even him. I bet it was the secretary making calls on his behalf, and she got it done.
Which is kind of funny because the person I know who you're referring to when you say this, and now he's come into some controversy over the last couple of years.
That's why I didn't even want to get into that. But he helped my family.
But I can also say that I still respect him a lot. Like, I look at his political contributions, and I never had any major issues with him.
I guess we can go ahead and put it was Bill Burr.
Richard Burr.
Or Richard Burr, sorry. Yeah. Bill Burr. It was a comedian.
It was a comedian.
It was Richard Burr.
I assure you, Bill Burr had nothing to do with all
Bill Burr had nothing. But it was Richard Burr, and he overall is a good man. But it for all I know, it could be one of those Bill Cosby situations where it's like he seemed like a good man, and he wasn't. I have no idea.
I think it's a little bit of a bold accusation to compare him to Bill Cosby. Like, now it sounds like we just want him to do bad.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do. Anyways, the point of the matter is I was just trying to say that actually had a direct effect on my family and even my life, just because I got out of 90-hour weeks, of having to support, what we had going on. So it's there's things you can do, but that doesn't mean that Richard Burr was absolutely the end all be all of deciding who gets disability in this state. That's not how that works. And same thing with our current president, past presidents, all that shit, Now, there's things they can do to alleviate, as we found out, that, there was more crude oil released into the public, and we're seeing the effects of it, and it's helping, But it's not going to fix everything, but it's going to help the American people, and it should have been thought about to begin with.
Yeah.
And the only reason we kept it was for military purposes anyways. So unless they're preparing to go to war, they shouldn't be so stingy over it. I know Donald Trump collected a shit ton of it. I know that was part of the reason why the Republicans loved him so much, is because he was going to beef up the military, and that was part of it. So I don't know. I'm really concerned about American people and how much they just go off the deep end on one individual and think that's going to fix the situation.
The other day I like that intersection, the intersection up here where Food Line is, off 66. There's these people. I mean, like, I don't know where you find the time to get all this crap made, or why you're even passionate about getting it made in the first place. But like, okay, a sign or some sticker or something in your house, whatever. Okay, whatever. But these people had a stand. I mean, just a stand of "Let's Go Brandon" merchandise, like just out selling it out of their truck or whatever. And I'm just like, what?
I mean, it's funny.
They're
looking to make money.
Yeah, but I'm just like, golly, what the things people are passionate about?
I'll tell you, if it's around here, it's because they're passionate about it.
Yeah,
but. I've seen companies releasing a lot of political I guess, memorabilia and sayings and things like. It's kind of like the MAGA hat sort of thing. There were people and companies producing the MAGA hat that had nothing they wanted to do with Donald Trump. They were just going to make a buck off of it.
Yeah.
You know, in those sort of situations, that's when it's just like, does your politics really matter? You know, we're just looking for the money.
Yeah.
But if it was around here, more than likely, they had some sort of prejudice towards our current administration. But actually, do you have anything else to add to that, Branch?
No, I think you guys hit on really the big points about the fact that I think, idolize a lot of these people in political power, especially. And we think a little bit too much of what they can personally do in that aspect.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm one of those people. I vote every single election cycle, and my views have changed constantly over time. I can say this: I've never voted straight party on a ticket in my life.
Yeah,
and
that's the way to be.
And as
You
far
go
as
for the people.
yeah, and that's how I make all my
Research your
decisions.
people.
Yeah.
Research your people before you vote for them.
Yes, and it really bothered me because I was living in the Winston area this last election cycle, and the man who was running for mayor in Winston-Salem, who was not the incumbent, he had affiliations with the Klan. And I'm like,
no.
How did this not immediately disqualify this guy? Not only that, he came.
It probably didn't disqualify him, but it should have been brought to light.
And how did he come within 10? He didn't win, or sorry, excuse me, he didn't lose by a significant enough margin, in my opinion, to rationalize that. How did this guy come?
Half of the a little less than half of the people here in Winston voted for him, is what you're trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it came within 10 percentage points. I'm
Jesus
how did that
Christ.
happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that election at all. But once I was out of Winston, there's no reason to for me, really. But yeah, so, but it's just to kind of close that up, Nick, is there anything you want to add to that? Or, is it, I kind of feel like we're on the same page, which I'm surprised about.
Look, it sucks when prices go up and stuff like that, but if just try your best to budget your money the best way you can, and
I guess you would have a lot of good tips for that sort of thing, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you're working for yourself.
I should start. I've thought about starting my own financial advice class.
It probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Kind of help guide people.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really know if I know the secrets on how to budget your money. I just
maybe
somehow
you should think about it, dude.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a commitment this time next year. I'm just kidding. I ain't gonna hold you to that. But this time next year, Nick Branscombe could have a financial help sort of line, I guess.
I actually kind of almost did look into that.
It's like if you can look into your situation and what you did and how it got you to where you're at.
Yeah, I feel like if you want to get paid to do something like that, you have to be certified or something like that to actually give financial advice. In a legal sense.
Yeah, but anybody can write a book.
Yeah,
anybody can write a book.
Yeah, I looked into it and I was just reading. That's some of the things I read. Maybe I should write a book then.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
anybody can write a book. So yeah, it's not that he's necessarily wanting to go to school for it, but he's seen success.
Musician, photographer, promotional jingle guy, author.
An author. Yeah, you're an entrepreneur now.
Well, we've all got on Microsoft Word before and just started typing our life story when we were bored.
Yeah, well, I haven't, but I wouldn't say it was my life story. But I've definitely thought about some of the shit I've went through. It's I should put this in a book.
I don't think I've ever wrote down my whole entire life story, but I do remember one time I got on the notepad or Word on the computer, and I just started started typing in some aspects of I was really bored one day probably, and I was just typing in some aspects of my life,
what was coming in.
Yeah,
whatever was hitting.
So yeah, maybe author is something to look into as well. It could be the next I don't know.
The next
J.K. Rowling.
No,
but she writes.
Nikki Sixx has written a book.
Yeah. Well, he's famous.
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
He's wrote 3 books.
Musician writing books. I mean, it's a thing. To kind of get this into our next topic, we're going to go ahead and start this. Branch had to use the bathroom, but he'll come into this. And what I want to say is right now is we are about to talk about a movie, and we don't want to spoil it for anybody. So we're going to do the best we absolutely can to not spoil this movie.
No.
For
Well,
everybody.
you don't have to say it like
But-
that. Just say spoiler warning if you haven't seen it.
Spoiler warning. We're going to talk about it. We're going to try to not give off the way the movie ends necessarily, but also too, if it does happen, here's your warning. You know, if one of us just slip up, I'm not editing it out.
Yep,
it's staying in.
I can't
So-
believe that Bruce Willis is a ghost at the end.
Oh shit! Bruce Willis is a ghost.
I
But
can't
anyways,
believe Bobby Boucher led the Mud Dogs back from halftime to
I
win
can't
them.
believe Kevin Spacey was the guy they were looking for the whole
Yeah,
time.
Branch came into that conversation at the perfect time. But has anybody seen the new Batman? I already know the answer to this question.
Yes.
Okay, so
I saw it Friday
yeah,
night.
I just kind of wanted to chat about that because obviously, you know, we have to continue to beat this dead horse here with more and more Batman movies. What were your thoughts? You know,
Well, Branch, you're the bigger
yeah,
superhero fan.
Branch is
here.
a huge Batman fan,
Let
so
him lead
I
this
kind of
off.
want to hear his perspective on this.
You know, Nick keeps forcing this upon me and going first now. But I actually do have a Batman tattoo in case no one here knew that. But
Where is it?
It's on my arm.
It's on your arm. Yeah, I've never seen that.
But yeah, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I can say that I had my problems with it, but I can say overall it's still definitely a good movie. I recommend most people go see it. You'll probably still enjoy it. Expect something that's a dark, serious movie, a very long movie. The best thing I can say about it is I think it's the best example we've ever gotten of what feels like a comic book story coming onto the screen. And that is actually my biggest strength for the movie and my biggest weakness for the movie. Because I think that there's certain things that work better cinematically when it comes to changes that maybe need to have been made for that movie. But overall, I can say that I really liked it. Performances in the movie, I think, were also a very big thing, and how like straightforward the plot was as far as like staying on the consistent like beaten path the entire time, and like it doesn't venture off too much, and you can you have to pay attention to the story to like really know what's going on the whole time because it's just a very story focused the whole way through.
Yeah.
I think that's what made the movie good.
Yes.
To be honest, is like you kind of as you were watching it, you started to realize that if I missed something,
Yeah.
like it kind of kept your attention there because the story was so involved.
That's why you go see it in the theaters. You're not as
There's been plenty
tempted
of movies,
to look
dude.
on your phone or something like that.
There's
But
been plenty of movies I've fallen asleep in just because like it didn't capture me. But that one being as long as it did, I'm surprised.
yeah,
I'm surprised that it kept me on the screen the whole time.
well, I think you gotta give credit to the director. Pretty sure his name is Matt Reeves.
Yes.
I don't know of
I don't think
anything
it was
else.
originally supposed to be Matt Reeves, but then it became Matt.
What I don't know anything else he's done, but with this movie he did.
He did a couple thriller movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this one he did a really good job on. Yeah, kind of like Branch. I feel like it was really good. And from what I remember seeing the Dark Knight when it first came out. You know, I was obviously younger. And kind of like I touched on a second ago, I didn't see it in theaters. I think I got it like as a DVD for Christmas, and I just remember the parts that didn't have the Joker, Heath Ledger. The other parts, to me, just being real boring. And
I
stuff
think,
like that.
I loved Heath Ledger.
Where
in
I
it,
made
though.
that comparison of this movie feeling like it was too much out of a comic book, I feel like the Dark Knight trilogy, that had the opposite effect of it. It felt like it was way too much cinematics.
Yeah,
production.
and so like to go to your point, you said it kind of feels like a comic book. Yeah, that's a good example because it's almost like the movie was being serious, but it's like they wanted to sprinkle some humor in here and there, but like they were kind of scared to. They still wanted to be serious, like the part where Batman is in Catwoman's apartment.
Oh, yeah,
and he's got all those.
I know the comic you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got all those cats, and he's just like, "You have a lot of cats." Like, so like
I
there's
thought
like,
it was good.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm saying
That's
like,
a cool bit.
yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying like that, but that's one of the only times that really kind of happens in the movie. But they're still not taking themselves so seriously.
A lot of people, when I was reading the reviews before going, a lot of people were comparing it to the cartoon that we had as a child, which I can't remember the exact name of it, but
Batman the animated series.
The animated, yeah. A lot of people were comparing it to that, and visually, I'll be honest with you, I get it. I get why they were, just because it seemed like in that cartoon there was almost never a sun out. And that's kind of the way the movie
That's the way
went.
I actually noticed that in this movie. I was like, man, the
sun's hardly
never
ever,
shines in this city.
Well, not until the end of the movie,
Yeah.
really, from what I remember.
There's
but
one scene where
movie,
you've seen the sunset, and then at the end of the movie, it's a little bit lighter.
Yeah. And that movie, the cool thing about that movie is the storyline only happens within about a week's time.
Yeah.
Which is
Yes.
really cool. There's not a whole lot of time jumps or anything like that. It kind of helps you. I'm kind of looking up what else Matt Reeves has done, because now that you're saying it. Okay, so War of Planet of the Apes, he was part of that. Let me in.
It
Dawn
looks
of the
like
Planet of the
Cloverfield.
Apes, Cloverfield.
I will also say this about the movie.
That's about it.
I believe the performances were something that really drove people's opinions very harshly with this movie. I agree with the consensus that I think that Robert Pattinson was a good Batman. That being said, he was a good Batman.
I think he was a good young Batman.
Whenever you see him outside of the suit, though, he doesn't really act much different, and it's pretty obvious. Like most people, if they saw this guy in public, they're like, "Yeah, that guy's probably Batman."
Yeah.
He looks like somebody who would throw on a bat suit.
Well, he
when
did
runs
say
around at
too.
night.
He did say in the movie that at this point, I guess in the Batman timeline, he'd only been Batman for like 2 years.
Yeah.
It's actually
seemed pretty young.
a large portion of the movie. It's not a direct. It doesn't take direct influence from the comic book, but it strongly pulls from a story called Batman Year One, where in that story, Batman's a lot less refined. He hasn't perfected his fighting style.
I think that was the coolest bit of the movie, and I was telling you about that when I was kind of urging you to go see it. I was telling Nick that I know nobody can see me point, but I just kind of liked how raw it seemed.
Yes,
like the Batmobile was very raw. It wasn't too futuristic. It wasn't the
suit, the
His
choreography.
suit was
yeah.
kind of bland, but in a good way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It was it was kind of interesting to see Batman, wince a little bit. When he get hit or something or fell or whatever.
It's funny because you see him taking hits and stuff whenever he's fighting and stuff. He's not getting his ass kicked by any means, but it's one of those things you see him struggling a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. And it's like he's trying so hard to deaden everything when he is Batman, where it's like if he takes a hit or something, like he's trying his hardest not to react, but you're seeing it happen still.
Yeah.
He's still making, he's still in all, I would say 20% of his fight scenes, you can kind of see him sort of hesitating, to what do they call it when you're about to hit somebody and
They flinch.
Flinch. There you go. Yeah, he flinched a little bit sometimes, and it was things they really humanized him more,
and
than any other Batman I've seen.
This was also a very good example of a movie that I've seen in more recent history. They didn't over rely on CGI. I loved the amount of practical effects they used in this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
The car chase scene, from what I've been told, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I've been told that was completely practical effects, that there wasn't any CGI for that scene.
Yeah, that was good, too.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Actually, that might have been the best scene in the movie was when the Batmobile first showed up.
Yeah.
And the chase was about to happen. Like just the way it was shot visually, it just looked great.
It was all from Penguin's perspective, wasn't it?
And I was getting ready to get to that point too, and I brought up practical effects before. The way they made Colin Farrell look in the Penguin makeup, it just
phenomenal.
He does not even look like the same
Phenomenal.
guy.
I was watching. I would say probably the most popular movie critic or reviewer on YouTube. His name is Chris Stuckman, and shout out to Chris Stuckman.
Shout out.
I was watching his review on it. And he made an interesting point about the black makeup around his eyes and the fact that when you first saw him without his suit on, he still had the makeup over his eyes.
Yeah, so it's like he had just taken off the bat suit.
So that just brings up the more human aspects about him.
He got home real late, and
it's not like as soon as he takes his mask
off
anything.
That really bad transition to that old Michael Keaton movie where he takes off the cowl.
Well, that's what Chris Stuckman brought up. He brought that up. He was like, he showed the scene, and he's like, so in the first scene, Batman has the eye makeup over his eyes, and then the very next scene, it's just off all of a sudden.
Yeah,
So
and things like that, and back then you didn't really notice things like that as much either. But we've gotten to the point that some stuff like that can ruin a movie now, where it's
Yes.
just like that was just poorly done. When you go back and watch that movie, it's a great movie.
And I brought up like the overuse of CGI. It's like when you notice bad CGI in movies now. Like it
yeah.
just sticks out so much.
That is
strong.
exactly why, and this is not necessarily Batman related, but that is why I I would say probably use the word despise. I despised Jurassic World when it came out. I was
Too much CGI.
I was so hyped for that movie, and then first off, the storyline was just
Now, are you talking about the first Jurassic World or the second?
the
Jurassic
first one.
World?
I haven't seen any other ones because I hated the first one so much. But yeah, I didn't really. The storyline was just bland. But in the original Jurassic Park, like the dinosaurs that were like animatronic looked badass. And then
And the use of CGI was very good for the time too.
yeah, well, they didn't overuse it either.
Yeah, exactly.
They used it for what they needed it for that time. But like in Jurassic World, it was like I'm pretty sure I don't know if they used any animatronics in
They
Jurassic
didn't.
World.
Oh, I'm sure they didn't.
And it just didn't look
it looks
great
like
to me.
It
Like,
looks like people are pointing at things that aren't there the whole time.
yeah, and it just I don't know.
You
It
can
really
tell that they didn't. They may have not even had props or anything to.
Just some guy in a mocap suit with a target that says "Look here." Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I still like that movie, but I do get it. When in CGI too, it depends on like if it's appropriate for that movie, and also too we grew up with the older Jurassic Parks too, so it's like the more things change on how they shoot these movies and things like that, I kind of want to say that, or at least for me, there's a little bit of bias, so I kind of want what I had. I kind of want like the old dinos. But when it comes to CGI in general, though, I really don't typically mind, even if it's overused. I don't.
So-
that's just me personally.
So here's an example I can think of good CGI in movies. And I'm going to stay on the subject of comic books because it's an area that I am more familiar with and what I watch a lot of. Something like, say, if you watch anything that's like from a time period of the early 2000s, everything looks very rubbery. And it sticks out so much to me because that was the area when it's just like, we're going to start using CGI a lot more in movies.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always in a practical way. And there's really, really good examples of that and really, really bad examples of that. The best example I can think of off the top of my head is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. So intuitive.
Yeah.
That aged very, very well. Another really good example, and this one still holds up today, for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the way they made Davy Jones
Yeah,
look.
Davy Jones, that held up.
Yeah. But if you compare that to something like other movies that came out at the time, even big budget movies like the Mummy movies, like they look so horrible.
The Rock,
Oh,
in the second Mummy,
Scorpion
yeah,
King.
Scorpion King. Oh my gosh! But the funny thing is, I didn't really even realize that as a kid because my favorite wrestler was The Rock, and so when I first saw him in a movie, even when he was a computer
Excitement.
a computer scorpion, I was like, dude, that's badass. That's The Rock.
You were completely fine with it.
And then I went back and rewatched that movie like a few years ago, and I was like, whew, yeah, that looked bad.
Well, then maybe that's the way I felt about like the newer Jurassic Parks, where I was just like, I kind of enjoyed it for nostalgia reasons. I wasn't really paying attention to like where they were looking and stuff. But if I go back and watch it now, I'll probably notice it more, now that y'all pointed it out.
And I said
And it
comic book
can
movies
ruin a movie.
earlier, but I guess I meant more like a science fiction aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, still, Lord of the Rings, it's still a book. It may not be a comic, but
But it's we're talking about the Mummy. So I actually went and watched the first one again several weeks ago, and they use CGI in that movie, but there's also parts where they didn't. Their effects were more practical with like the mummies and stuff like that, and they look cool. There's something about.
But every time you see Emotep, I'm just like, it looks so unconvincing every single time you see him on screen, though.
yeah.
What do you mean, like in a like?
Like he just looks like he looks like he's made from a computer.
Oh, you talking about
yeah.
before he like fully regenerated?
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You see what he looks like when he's like slightly decaying, or when he's
Yeah.
like in bandages and stuff like that. Yeah, he does not look convincing.
Yeah. No, yeah, when he first shows up, now his like corpse when they first bring him out of his coffin or whatever, like that looks pretty cool. It looks all just gooey and scary looking and crap.
So to kind of lean back into the Batman thing, not to like pardon y'all's talk about that, but like,
Love the Mummy.
yeah, it's a good movie. But as far as like the new Batman movie, so you're saying they used a lot less.
Yeah,
Of that sort of thing.
A
and
lot less
That probably
CGI.
helped how dark it was too. Like that probably was a reasoning.
A lot less CGI in the movie. I noticed that, and I think that helped with the aesthetic of the movie,
I
especially
don't think I
considering.
even paid attention to like see like
Yeah.
and thought about like that's obviously CGI or something like that.
But it helps us with a movie like Batman. Like for an example, for like something like Superman. Like when you're dealing with like aliens and superpowers and stuff. Yeah, I expect CGI to be in it. But something like Batman, where it's more grounded and realistic, it definitely benefited the movie. Like them staying away from those CGI effects as much as they did.
Well, and you know, Batman, he can't necessarily fly like
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
We learned that too.
yeah,
Yeah, he
Or at least-
takes a big fall in the movie.
Yeah.
But at that moment in time, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is I was like, just jump off, you'll figure it out. and he was hesitating.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was like,
I don't know
It's
about
almost
this.
like he had technology that was untested or something that he was about to use. And he was like, "Here we go," and then
Yeah.
just kind of went for it, and he came out of it alive, but he fucked up bad, or even like towards the end, like the adrenaline shot thing. Like
That was
again, I'm
interesting.
not gonna try to push how the movie ends, but like that just seemed very raw and very of today's age of something like a trick that a modern Batman would have and. Not necessarily which I don't even know if it was adrenaline. I don't know what the fuck it was.
I just assume it's adrenaline. I mean,
yeah.
there's like no good comic book explanation for it.
But it's
yeah.
like Batman's almost dead, and then just like boom, he turns into a fucking monster. Like,
Yeah.
All right,
he was like
so-
growling and shit.
So I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. After seeing this movie, who's your favorite Batman? We'll start with Nick this time.
Well, I got to be completely honest. Y'all have probably seen more Batmans than I have. I mean, like I said, I saw The Dark
Yeah,
Knight.
but
I've seen
you're
this one.
definitely more of a movie buff than I am. So you might have me on Batman movies.
Oh,
I've
honestly,
seen a lot
not.
of the early
I mean,
ones.
I don't think I've really ever fully watched the Michael Keaton one,
okay.
or even like the Adam West, and stuff like that.
You've more seen The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Like there was a point around when The Dark Knight came out where I was kind of into a lot of the superhero movies before then, but then at some point. Around that point, I don't know. I kind of just stopped watching all of the superhero movies that were coming out.
That's because you saw bad superhero movies, and about that time they were finally getting good.
Yeah, I guess so. Which is funny though. I really loved, and everybody shits on this movie, but I really loved Hulk, like the one that came out in like 2003.
The Ang Lee Hulk movie.
I actually like that one too.
I like that
I'll be
one.
honest with
the one
you.
that had Jennifer Garner in it,
Yeah.
or whatever.
No,
her
it
name
was
is.
it was someone else. It wasn't Jennifer Garner. It was she was
Pretty sure it was her.
no, it wasn't Jennifer Garner.
Well, what's
Jennifer
settle
Garner
it.
Jennifer Garner was in the Daredevil movie.
Was that one just Hulk?
it was
Or-
just called Hulk.
Hulk by Ang Lee. Yeah, 2003.
It had the same girl
Jennifer
that
Connelly.
that might be it.
Yeah.
yeah. It had her in it. But I really like that one. I think a lot of people hated the way that it was shot.
It's a very serious movie too. Like
Yeah.
it talks a lot about mental health, and I thought that was
Jennifer
a cool
Connelly.
subject. Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly. Okay, yeah,
Jennifer Connelly.
But
Yeah, that was a good movie.
yeah, I really like that one. But a lot of people, a lot of people shit on it. But
Because
so
of the way it looked.
I don't know.
But it was still a good movie.
I mean,
If the CGI had been better on the Hulk, and that's another good example
was
where
the
it falls
problem.
back on that point. Yeah, 2003 CGI was not ready for a Hulk movie.
It was not. It was
but
not.
when
'cause
I,
you
but when I
have
was
to
in
use
2003, when I was like
CGI.
7, 8 years old, that looked cool as shit. I thought.
Oh yeah, yeah. At our age, it's a little easier to be forgiving
Yeah.
to that sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched it since I was very young, but I remember liking the movie a lot.
Yeah.
So
I think it holds
played
up
the
better
video
than
game.
it holds up better than the 2008 Hulk movie does.
yeah, the 2008 Hulk movie. I think I got through about half of it, and I can't remember what it was, but there was something better to do.
I did watch that
So,
one too.
I'll be honest with you. I whatever it was, I felt like was more important than
Yeah.
sitting there watching. The
I don't know.
movie,
I
so.
mean, I thought Robert Pattinson did a really good job. Christian Bale, I guess, was forgettable. I don't know if he did bad, but
just in your thoughts on, I guess what you would want in a Batman too, because Branch being as big of a fan as he is, would probably kind of tell you stylistically kind of where you would lean. But if Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson aren't everything you want in a Batman, what would you want to see in a Batman? I guess. What did those two movies leave on the table that you could have done more of, or that sort of thing?
I don't know. I don't know that Robert Pattinson really left a whole lot on the table for me. He wasn't, like you were saying, he wasn't overly confident,
Yeah.
and like he showed, actual
I think
human
he acted
aspects.
his age.
Yeah.
And I think that fit like how the movie went. I personally, and just to kind of give you my bias here, I personally really liked the movie and how he did it. So
Yeah. Now I don't know. Maybe he could show that there's a little bit of a humorous side to him more, I guess. But that's not like a problem. It didn't bother me or anything. That's Batman. Batman's supposed to be serious.
Okay, but him out of the suit. Do you need would you have liked to seen him be more charming? Would you have liked to not you kind of like a dark, mysterious, wealthy man?
I think one of the things that kind of did intrigue me about the movie before we even talked about seeing it and talking about it on the podcast was I watch YouTube all the time, and the trailer was one of the ads. And normally I'm just clicking the skip ad, stuff like that. But I came across, or I saw the trailer, and I was like, at first I didn't fully know what it was, but it looked kind of interesting. And the trailer was the scene at the memorial for the senators, or not the mayor's.
The guy that was previously the mayor, and I guess he is the mayor, but confirm for me, Branch. Wasn't it the mayor that passed away first? And he was running for re-election.
He was one of the people that passed in the movie. I want to say it was the district attorney. I think that died first.
Okay. So it's whoever's funeral.
Yeah. The scene with the funeral. I thought it looked really cool. It looked really well shot, and I thought Robert Pattinson had this look on his face like he knew something was about to happen.
Yeah, he was kind of expecting it.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. So I mean, I don't know. I thought he did a really good job. There's not much he left out.
So you think he did pretty much what you wanted for a Batman versus like what you've seen out of Christian Bale?
Yeah,
like you think he did better.
I guess I need to go back and watch The Dark Knight too because it's been so long. But yeah.
I think I personally on Christian Bale, I really didn't like his version of Batman, but I feel like without him doing what he did, it kind of helped bring Batman into a more modern status. Personally,
I think so too.
It's not that I really absolutely loved his performance or anything like that, but I think he kind of understood that Batman, even in the cartoon shows and stuff, was moving in that direction of
being more realistic and serious.
Yeah,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of the older Batmans, it seemed like maybe they were a little more comical than serious.
Well, I wouldn't say even comical. So a lot of people. Well, I'll ask you before we kind of explain those. Branch, who is your favorite Batman? Now that we have another Batman.
In live action terms, like who I've seen in physical live action movies. So my nostalgia, just because of what it was at the time and timelessness behind it, I still say Adam West is probably my favorite live action Batman.
That's interesting.
Just because
that was more comical, Nick.
Yeah.
That was a lot more comical.
I figured so.
But I think Adam West is my favorite Batman just because I still remember when I was a kid and people were still talking about Adam West and how much they enjoyed that old goofy 60s show. And people still enjoyed it to that day. 10 years later, people still enjoy it. 10 years later, once again, we're now in the 2020s, people still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think he has that level of timelessness to him that I don't think most of these other Batman actors are going to get behind them. I can say as far as my knowledge of comic books and what I've seen on the live screen versus a comic book, Ben Affleck, I think, hit it just right in the sense of...
Yeah, he did pretty good, actually, as a Batman.
In terms of what he looked like, the way he acted both in and out of the Batsuit as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, he did a good job. My really only complaint about those movies is, of course, the scripting is not very good in those.
It didn't give him really a good opportunity.
And we only saw him featured in Batman v Superman and Justice League, so we didn't even really get a real Batman story out of it.
Yeah, and that's what... Well, and I think that's what this movie was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be Ben.
Yes, originally it started as it was going to be a solo Ben Affleck Batman movie, and he was supposed to direct the movie, but that was before the big controversy between the theatrical release of Justice League, and he wanted to step away from the role because of all the negative press it got.
I get it. I think the more that I watch the movies, it's becoming Michael Keaton for me.
And Michael Keaton was also an excellent Batman.
I think, and that's something that's been, because I've probably seen his Batman movies like maybe 3 or 4 times at this point, because my girlfriend Steph absolutely loves them. So they've gotten better each time I've watched them, and I don't know why. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know if that's I'm noticing more or I'm paying attention more. Or
Between the 2 Tim Burton Batman movies, Batman and Batman Returns, which one do you like better?
I actually like them both pretty good, but I think I'm just gonna have to say Batman.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go with the original, just because of how it. I don't know. It was just a good introductory movie, like just to kind of establish what Tim Burton wanted out of the movie, I guess. And also Michael Keaton as Batman. But I'll slowly, I liked this new Batman movie a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Robert Pattinson that was absolutely blowing it out of the water for me. I think the movie just turned out really damn good. But he's up there for me. I'd have to say he's like number 2, and then the controversial number 3 is I'm just a George Clooney fan, so I'll be completely honest with
and
you.
at that moment, Austin got kicked off his own podcast.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. I think Michael Keaton does good in and out of the suit. George Clooney does really good out of the suit. Let's just say that. When George Clooney's George Clooney, he's the fucking man. But as soon as he is in the suit, it gets kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. He's not a very good suited Batman.
I just love the campiness of that movie. It's one of those movies. It's so bad, it's enjoyably bad.
Well, that's Steph. Again, Steph loves it, so we watch it a lot. And I kind of fell in love with that movie before I fell in love with the Michael Keaton movies, honestly.
Yeah.
Just because of, and yeah, I wouldn't even call it a Batman movie, but it's still.
It's like if you were filming a Batman parody movie, and then somebody at the end of the movie was like, "Wait a minute, this wasn't supposed to be a parody."
Yeah, we should. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they took it serious the whole time. They thought they were doing great, and then at the end, everybody sees it and they're just like, "Okay, this is a fucking joke." But it's a great. It's for what it is. If you just take it for what it is, it's a great movie. Don't think of it as a Batman movie. I'll be honest with you. I was never a huge fan of old school Adam West, me personally. I'm very much the era I grew up in. Let's just say that. I'm very much the era I grew up in. So I think that's why I kind of loved this new movie so much, is because I grew up watching like Batman Beyond and shit. So it would just the Batman shows were dark, and I grew up watching like Gargoyles and shit, which actually that would be a great segue.
I'm going to say one more thing before we leave the Batman subject, just because I think it's worth mentioning, because I talk about like live action versus comic books, and still to this day, I don't think anyone's been a more iconic Batman, because in the 1990s, he started in the animated series, and he still voices the character today. Kevin Conroy, that is Batman's voice to me.
Absolutely.
Like, if I read a comic book to this day, I read it in Batman's dialogue.
In his voice.
Yeah, it's Kevin Conroy talking. Yeah.
And kind of to go along that same lines, like, as far as Joker voices, what do you hear when you're reading those comic books?
I can say that I hear a couple different voices, but most of them sound like Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill?
Yeah.
I do the same thing, dude. I'll be honest. It's rare that I read a Batman comic, but I have, and every single time that's the voice that pops into my head. And I think the only person that got close, and I'm not saying it's because he's a good Joker, but like voice-wise, like starting to get into that high kind of laugh and stuff. I did like Jared Leto's idea of what he wanted to do with the Joker. I don't like how it was done, but
I think that movie falls in the Justice League Batman v Superman territory of that was a movie, the Suicide Squad movie got gutted from what it originally was supposed to be. And I think if we would have saw the original version, we probably would have liked it better.
Yeah, I actually did see that, and I thought it was bad.
Yeah, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
I love Jared Leto too, so again, I have bias here. But if there's a voice that I hear for the Joker, Mark Hamill by far is got it.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, Leto could have been a good Joker, but unfortunately, I guess that now we'll never be able to get to see that.
It's fine. We're turning him into a Marvel nega hero, I guess. I don't know what to call him.
Morbius, yeah.
Yeah,
Anti-hero,
Morbius.
yeah.
Yeah, anti-hero. There you go. So and that actually watching those previews looks really damn good, by the way.
Which is odd because I didn't expect to care about that movie at all. And then I saw
me
the trailer
neither.
and I'm like, this actually looks kind of interesting.
Me neither. But they let Jared Leto be Jared Leto, so that's where I was like, okay, maybe we're just going to let actors do what they're good at now. Which I think he would have been a great Joker because he's one of those guys that he's another one of those guys, kind of like Robert Pattinson, where he gets a part, he learns it, he lives it for the next 3 years.
I loved it when I saw him in Dallas Buyers Club. He was so great in that movie.
Yeah, he's a great actor. I don't know why he hasn't been in more in general. I think that was his original sort of gig, is he was into acting, and then he got popular through music. So, but to kind of lean into the comic thing, I'm going to go ahead and hit this. Nick's got us something kind of music related that we'll hit on after. But I'm going to go into this since we were talking about cartoons. This is your true crime for today. So this is because if I don't include true crime, the girlfriends are going to be mad at me. Because I did it once and it was local. I don't know if you heard the first podcast, Branch, but it was actual local true crime. And then the last one was very dark, and this one's kind of dark, but I wanted to stay away from all the darkness, so I've hit it with.
It's kind of funny. My mom has been listening to the podcast, and if you're listening, hi mom.
Hi mom.
But she'll come up to me and tell me, she'll like, gosh, I mean, it's interesting, but it's really dark. The things you're talking about. I'm like, well, you know.
I mean, the things people talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pull up my notepad for this because I had to take a couple notes on this. This is my own built-in segue, by the way. Yeah, my built-in segue. If I can find it, there it is.
It's a bad segue if you need your notes, man.
Yeah. Well, it's because there's a lot to go with it at least. So since we're talking cartoons, think about Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Think about Disney Channel.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Nickelodeon. And all your favorite shows from when we grew up, pretty much. Okay, so this one in particular leans towards Nickelodeon.
Is this about Dan Schneider?
I
No.
think
This is not
I
Dan
thought that's where he
Schneider.
was
I
going
thought
with
that's
this
where you
too.
were going with it.
This is not Dan Schneider. This is something I ran across while looking into some information.
But now I want to talk about that too.
now we can talk about the Dan Schneider stuff if y'all want to. I've got other interesting things about Nickelodeon on here.
Let's hear that first.
But the Dan Schneider stuff, I mean, you can talk about it, but I think people have talked about it till they're blue in the face.
It's already done.
It's
He's
established.
disassociated himself.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other men in those positions that I mean, there was a lot of Nicktoon guys that were pretty bad, pretty rough. But anyway, so again, think about your favorite shows. So I mean, we're talking even early era stuff, like stuff pre-SpongeBob.
Okay.
Like we're talking about kind of that era thing. So I've just got kind of some interesting things about Nickelodeon, and the reason I ran across this, and the reason I prepared this for True Crime is I'll elaborate more on that one in particular, but I kind of want to talk about each of these little things. So, which I didn't really prepare Nick for this at all. So I told him it was included in True Crime, but I didn't really he's unprepared too. So just kind of try to think back and pull all that old shit up and just remember what was there. Do y'all remember Nick's Worldwide Day of Play?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Maybe.
Okay, so what Nickelodeon did, and I completely forgot about this until this popped up in this iceberg of bullshit that I went through. I was just like, I remember that shit, and what it was is Nickelodeon literally aired a 3-hour break of cartoons. They aired the whole thing. It was just a backdrop saying, go outside for 3 hours. That was a thing that I completely forgot about. And also, too, do y'all remember Snick?
Yes,
Do y'all remember Snick?
that one I remember.
Yeah,
more.
tell me what
Yes.
Snick. Do you remember what Snick was, Branch?
It was like Saturday Night Snick. Yeah.
It was like a Saturday night teen show playing the same shit. Well, no,
Yeah.
pardon me. It was playing more stuff like Keenan and Kel.
Yeah.
They actually played Rugrats on it. I don't know why that made it to it. But,
So you're talking about like the throwback version that they had.
well, this is whatever Snick was. I don't think it's a throwback. I think this was like back in it would have been like 98.
Okay,
So,
so yeah, you're talking
it was
about,
an original Snick, but they also played like movies and shit too.
yeah, you're talking about the original one in the like 2010s, like 2010 to like 2014 or so. They did like a throwback version of Snick where they played like the same stuff at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason I bring this up is because they again, it was a thing that I completely forgot about. So Saturday Nick for like teenagers, and I don't remember seeing this movie, but y'all let me know if y'all remember it. I don't even remember what all, like I was reading some stuff on it. If you hear this and you want to see it, evidently it is on YouTube. You can go watch the full version. Someone found it. It's called Crybaby Lane, if I can talk. If y'all ever heard of Crybaby Lane.
That's not in my memory.
Evidently, this is a movie that used to air on it for a long time, and then parents caught it, and then like Nick almost got in trouble. It was a straight up legit like scary movie, like I mean equivalent of like Michael Myers or something like that they were playing on a child's. Well, I guess it was oriented for like PG-13.
I'm curious. Was there like any like big actors that were in the movie by any chance?
I don't remember. Maybe I should look some. I don't remember a lot about the movie or what it's about, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've never heard
from
of
when I
this.
did these notes. But evidently, Nickelodeon has done everything they possibly can to hide this shit. Let's see if there's just like a small little summary. Nickelodeon television film that premiered. Okay, this was in 2000. So, it was a horror movie. Had Jace Blankford, Frank. Yeah, I don't think I remember any of these people. Oh, it had Jim Gaffigan in it. Let's see.
Yeah, Jim Gaffigan, I know.
Yeah, it had Jim Gaffigan in it. So yeah, I mean, it's a movie that existed. Does it just give like a small summary? Yeah, there it is. There's the full movie. Someone posted it. Anyways, but yeah, it was quickly taken down. So evidently, it's a legit scary movie. So might be fun to watch as an adult. That's what I'm trying to say. What about Oh Yeah Cartoons? Do y'all remember that?
I remember Oh Yeah Cartoons. That was how the Fairly Odd Parents got their start.
Yeah, so Oh Yeah Cartoons was a great little show that literally just had like animators submitting shit to it, like 5-minute segments, and they were just airing them all back to back to back.
Call me crazy, but and a lot of this pre-SpongeBob like '99 era, I don't really remember because I watched more Cartoon Network before then. But
Okay.
in like the very first like seasons of Fairly Odd Parents that aired before they actually did a legit season 1,
Those were the Oh Yeah Cartoons ones, yeah.
you couldn't see Timmy's parents'
Correct.
top half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the Oh Yeah Cartoons one.
I like vaguely. You cannot find that anywhere though. But I remember seeing that though on TV.
They've been released, and you could probably find them on YouTube or on DVD
Okay.
releases.
Yeah, I guess I haven't searched for them, but I remember maybe several years ago I tried to search for them. I was like, I must be crazy that the Fairly Odd Parents had segments where you could not see anybody's upper body, like besides Timmy's.
Yeah, one thing that I don't think people remember is the original voice for Timmy Turner is not Tara Strong. In the pilot episode, it was Mary Kay Burgin.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. Yeah.
And
Jimmy's voice changed.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Well, do you
I don't
know-
remember who it was, but
Well, do you know why it changed, though?
no, I have no idea.
So, and this was definitely Nickelodeon trying to separate them from this as much as possible. But she committed suicide in the late '90s.
Oh.
yeah, and she only ever filmed only ever recorded for the pilot. So they re-recorded it with Tara Strong, the Timmy Turner that we all know. Yeah,
And then, well, I remember seeing it. So what I saw in Oh Yeah Cartoons of the Fairly Odd Parents probably was the lady who committed suicide, or
if you saw the first episode and you think Timmy's voice sounds weird,
I
it's
thought
probably
Timmy's voice changed after the first episode.
Yeah,
so.
it's Mary Kay Burgin in the first episode.
Okay, and it may not be now if you go look it up. But in Oh Yeah Cartoons, that was I I just remember it being. I don't remember like. I looked at an image of what they put up when they started Oh Yeah Cartoons. So it was basically just like a wallpaper. Oh Yeah Cartoons, and it had its little thing, and then it just ran straight into shows. So I remember the shows more than I remember anything else, like seeing the shorts of these shows. Dexter's Lab started on there, was later picked up by Cartoon Network.
Yeah, that was
which
my cartoon when I was
success,
a kid. Yeah,
huge success. Cow and Chicken, Chalk Zone, Powerpuff Girls, Fairly Odd Parents, and there was a bunch of other.
I think I do need to jump in here real quick, and I think you're mixing two different programs together. Oh Yeah Cartoons was strictly Paramount and Nickelodeon content. When you're talking about Dexter's Lab and Cow and Chicken, those were on What a Cartoon.
No, I'm pretty sure they started on Oh Yeah Cartoons, dude.
I think I might fact check you on this. I'm pretty sure those are What a
Let's
Cartoon.
do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, those are from What a Cartoon.
Let's try it. Yeah, cartoon. Good old Google. Yeah, let's. I need someone fact checking me. Okay, so this is just going to be Wikipedia because I'm not going through all that
your
shit.
girlfriend might not always be there for you, but Google will.
But Google will be.
Google will be there.
And Google's the best girlfriend of all time. She'll always correct you no matter what.
My Life as a Teenage Robot started on there.
Oh wow,
That was a Nickelodeon
Chuck's
cartoon.
on.
Yeah, that was a Nickelodeon cartoon.
I wish it would just say the cartoons. Wonder if it says it in the episodes.
You can probably find a list, yeah. But yeah,
Kenan Thompson hosted Oh Yeah Cartoons?
Mm-hmm.
Kablam? Oh, no, that was a similar show. See also...
And there were the ones that you're thinking of, because you're kind of combining the two, I believe. What a Cartoon eventually became Cartoons. That was the Cartoon Network equivalent of it.
Okay. Yeah, well, correct me if I'm wrong. So we at least know the Fairly Odd Parents and Chalk Zone came from that. And then maybe it was a car. But I thought, that's what I thought, it was hosted on Oh Yeah Cartoons and then later picked up by Cartoon Network. So, like, this was, like, for shows that, like, Nickelodeon was thinking about, like, starting and seeing what people liked.
It was like a testing site.
Which I don't know why they do shit like that now. Like, why can't they just take an independent animator and, like, just give them that opportunity and see if it does something? I mean, that's how they created great content back then. You know,
would make too much sense.
Yeah, not enough slots because there's too much SpongeBob.
Well, I tell you, the three, of like Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob, and Jimmy Neutron in the early 2000s. Like, I don't know if you could have gotten more like ahead of their time, just clever cartoons.
They were great.
Like,
well, and
Fairly
even
Odd Parents
prior
in
to
particular, that was a very dialogue heavy.
Yes,
cartoon.
it was. And
Rocko's Modern Life. You think of Angry Beavers. Angry Beavers. It pissed me off when that went off the air. That was like my show.
That cartoon had a pretty long shelf life, though. That cartoon was on for like 5 years.
I read into why that the creators of that show were the reason they got booted. It's not for like the same reasons like Rocco got turned off or what was the other one? Ren and Stimpy.
Yes,
it got cut off because that was more because of adult humor. But the Angry Beavers got self-aware. They were so self-aware. Like the later you watch, like they were talking about how they're a cartoon, they would like make jabs at Nickelodeon. You could tell the creators weren't getting along with Nickelodeon.
And I think they actually make an acknowledgement. Like in the last episode, don't they acknowledge the show's
Yeah, they didn't even release it. You can find the audio somewhere, but it never got drawn.
Gotcha.
So I went and listened to it, and I was just like, damn. Like you could tell they were ready to just let Nick have it. So another interesting thing, y'all remember Hey Arnold?
Of course.
Do y'all remember Helga?
Yeah.
Do y'all remember how drunk Helga's mom was constantly?
Yes. It was never directly stated, but it was strongly implied. Yeah.
She always had a damn drink in her hand of something she had concocted, and she acted drunk the entire time. And as a kid, I had no idea.
And because you guys can't see
I just thought she was dull and dumb and blah 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 blah. And
you guys can't.
Helga.
You guys listening can't hear me, but I'm doing air quotes. Yes, she was always drinking her smoothies.
Smoothies. Yes, yeah, she was definitely drunk. I just thought that was interesting. And also, too, when I was kind of looking into that, too, they were going to come out with a show called the Pataskis. I think that's how you said her last name.
Patakis.
Patakis.
Yeah.
There you go. So they were going to come out with a Helga show after Hey Arnold ended, and it was supposed to be more teen oriented. And I remember, y'all correct me if on y'all's perspective, y'all let me know on y'all's perspective, but I always hated Helga and Hey Arnold. And when I think about it, like the way Helga grew up and the psychological issues she probably had just being a normal human being on this earth. I mean, she was making shrines to a boy, her dad was like super absent and way too heavy-handed. Her mom was drunk constantly, and her sister was the perfect individual who ever lived. So like, I'm trying to think of her growing up, and that probably would have been a good show. But at the same time,
I think it would have been too serious of a show.
Yeah,
though.
now that I'm thinking about it, looking at it from a better educated perspective, I'm just like, damn, no wonder Helga was so fucking angry all the time. Like, she just had an awful home life. And then they were going to come out with that show, but that exactly what Branch said. The pilot came out, and it was
too real.
Yeah, it was too real. So they were like, even teenagers, we can't risk this. But I thought that was interesting too. Like, there's even images you can go find the hints at what they were building. And I think to kind of give a little bit of that, is they were originally going to make it like Helga moves away, and she had been on and off dating Arnold, and then in the very first episode, she had it shows you her normal day, and so like part of her ritual, this is a part that got picked out, is she writes a letter to Arnold, even though they've obviously broken up. She still loves him or whatever, and she goes to the post office every day and then talks herself out of mailing the letter, then goes home and files it away somewhere. She's kept all the letters that she's written Arnold and shit, and never mailed one, but she always
That's
does
a pretty
that
dark
ritual.
ending to a cartoon, yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's partly why, but it probably would have been amazing TV, is what I'm trying to say. Especially for us at the age we are now. Like,
You brought up that that moment as far as like that being a little bit too real. Do you remember another Nickelodeon cartoon called As Told by Ginger?
oh yeah,
Do you remember? Do you remember how serious that show got in certain moments?
yeah, that was definitely directed at teenagers.
Yeah.
It was definitely, and I wasn't watching it for a teenage perspective, but I watched the hell out of that show. I liked it.
There's one episode in particular that I can remember, and it directly acknowledges like a poem that Ginger writes during class, and there's like they kind of like acknowledge like depression, mental health, and like suicide awareness in the episode.
And I bet they got in trouble for that shit.
Actually, quite the opposite. That show, I think that episode won them an Emmy.
Really?
Yeah, I think it got an award of some sort for it. Yeah.
Have you watched either of these shows?
No.
Heavy at all?
Well, I mean, I watched. It's been so long since I watched Hey Arnold. I did watch that. I've never watched the As Told by Ginger. I
Yeah,
don't
so
think.
you were definitely a Cartoon Network boy then. You had to have
Just
been.
when I was like really, really little, and then once SpongeBob came along, which I really didn't even start watching SpongeBob till probably 2002, 2003, something like that. But
Which this may be part of the reason. Nick, did your parents have cable when you were like real young?
yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that because mine didn't. Because I only remember watching like cartoons on the weekends because my dad had cable.
Yeah.
I
I just
watched
I just
cartoons
remember
all the
being
time.
really, really little watching Cartoon Network, watching stuff like Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls and Courage the Cowardly Dog and,
Yeah, that's
and
all
stuff like
great
that.
shit too,
yeah.
man. And here's where I'm going to give this one first, and then we'll go into the real topic here. But do y'all remember the THQ Super SpongeBob game?
Super Sponge?
Yeah, it was on the PS1.
Yes, I do remember that game. I played that game.
It was just kind of a platformer.
I think I might have played that one. Yeah.
Okay, so
That was like the first SpongeBob game they made. Yeah.
Yeah.
that game, made by THQ, well, and to tell you, it's from the same studio that made the Silent Hill games. So, just going to go ahead and leave that out there. That game included images in its files of drawings of SpongeBob pegging Patrick, Patrick banging Sandy, and SpongeBob in full bondage. So I know that's supposed to be scary, creepy, and we're over here trying not to laugh. But this was in a child's video game. And it's not that they would have ever been smart enough to stick it in a computer and look at the files that were on that disc. But to this day, if you go buy one, you can find those
Can
images.
you find it on Google
Yeah,
Images?
you could. Yeah, if y'all want to see it real quick, let me see. I looked at them; it was funny. I mean, they're very sketchy.
And when you see them on Google, it's definitely from the game. It's not like somebody just took
Yeah,
SpongeBob
so
and put some.
Yeah, and when you're playing the game, it's not like you'll ever see them. It's
Yeah.
just something that the creators left there that was mass produced by
Yeah.
accident, probably.
They're probably bored one night.
It's kind of like the whole Teletubby product saying, well, I'm just going to spell the word just so nobody gets upset, but it was Fagget.
Oh yeah.
And it was funny because we had my cousin Lionel had one, which you know Lionel. Yeah, I guess you probably know Lionel.
I don't think I've ever met Lionel in person.
Okay, so he's a cop now, so if you get pulled over, it could be him. But he had one. It was a little purple Teletubby, and his mama got it for him or whatever, and he loved the thing. And we were over there, and Mama was like, she could swear that it was saying that word. And she's like, oh, no, it's just a kid's toy. That's how they talk. And it was in the voice. And then the week after, there was a recall on him because of it. Yeah. And it was hilarious. There they are. So those are the censored ones. So you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I might have to send those to you, Branch. But that's what they drew up and left in the game.
I'm sure I could probably find it pretty easily too.
Yeah, I just put dirty images, THQ, Super Sponge game.
That's awesome.
But anyways, I thought that was interesting. And then the last one that's going to lead us into our fun topic is the Bloody Gurr that was in Invader Zim. Did you ever watch Invader Zim, Nick?
I don't think so.
Branch, I don't know if you
Absolutely,
were.
yeah.
Yeah, you watched Invader Zim. Okay. So Invader Zim was known for dark humor anyways. But there was a drawing of Gurr that was done by the staff that they wanted to include in an episode. And, of course, Nickelodeon was just like, nah, we can't. You're pushing the lines anyways. We can't include blood and stuff.
Yeah.
And so this Bloody Gurr image, on the last 14 episodes, they found every opportunity that they could, like, watermark him in somewhere and, like, hide him in episodes. And I just thought that was a cool, interesting thing. And y'all can, if anyone listening to the podcast, if you want to see Bloody Gurr, just look him up. You know, it's basically it's like Gurr, you know, with like blood oozing out of the robot parts or whatever. But that leads us into our fella, Scott Dilsky. I think that's how you say his last name. So everyone, and this, I want this to be, I'll kind of give you the gist of it, and we can discuss it amongst ourselves because I think it brings up an interesting topic too. But let's just go ahead and say Scott killed someone. The scene of the crime was left in a pretty gross manner. And later in court, people tried to attribute this murder to Invader Zim. And as far as I can tell, I've done as much research as I can on it. As far as I can tell, that we don't even know if this dude ever watched the cartoon. So if he meant to, he hasn't told anybody yet.
This is just like an average guy. He didn't have any association with Nickelodeon or anything.
Yeah, he's no association. But it's with an episode of Invader Zim, and I've got kind of a small thing about that too. There it is. Okay, so let's just put this into perspective. Scott was a 16-year-old boy, and a lot of people explained him as goth, so that can give you sort of an image of him. I don't really know. I wouldn't necessarily call him goth, like in how he acted, but he definitely liked black clothing. He had longer hair, things like that. So he was an artist. He, even in school, he got really good grades. He, in art, and like his work was strewn across the room and stuff, but he drew really gory images. And the art teacher always said that other kids were doing this too. This wasn't only Scott. and she just loved his work.
Sounds like some stuff. Yeah, I remember seeing people who did stuff like that.
Pretty
too,
average. It's pretty average for someone, of that age to draw something like that. So there was some pretty dark stuff that happened to him. His sister died in a bad car wreck in like '02. He did not live with her, but he was pretty close to her. So like I think he lived with his mom and she lived with their dad, and so they got to see each other when they visited each other each other's actual guardian. Excuse me, actual guardian. So after the death of her, he started to begin to write a lot of interesting things, like stories and things like that. One was called Love for the Kill. Another one was called In Lonely. And then another one was called In Separation. So obviously the dude was sort of depressed at that time. There was also an image that was found in his room that he had drew of a man in a trench coat holding a knife. And the caption said, "Guns don't kill people, I do." And when you talk about the other items found in his room, he had obviously a fascination with murders. So this wasn't necessarily come out in the press that they think this or they know this or anything like that. But it sounds like he was drawing Jack the Ripper. That's kind of what it sounded like. He also had like a lot of murder storybooks like Hannibal or things like that. I think it's the name of it, ain't it? Hannibal? Is that for Hannibal Lecter? Was the book just called Hannibal?
Yes, it was.
Something like that. Yeah, there was a lot of books like that he had.
Doesn't sound too like off or
Yeah,
abnormal.
I mean, he's
though,
still
yeah.
as that's why they explained him as goth. It's because he was into a lot of dark shit. I mean, Kurt Cobain may have killed himself, but he was drawing like fetuses and stuff, and evidently has these world-renowned pictures that are now in museums and stuff. So I mean, images of other murderers, Ted Bundy, Manson. He drew like their faces under some stuff, and had some quotes that he he was feeling and had a fascination. And if it tells you anything, Steph likes, murder horror too. We talked about girls liking this sort of stuff. So it's not abnormal for someone to be interested by these things. So nothing seemed out of the ordinary, really. But he he dropped out of school pretty early after that, after the death of his sister. And he has this buddy named Robin who I could not confirm a sex on. I don't know if Robin's a boy or a girl. I feel like Robin's a girl. I feel like that's the way it was. And they come up with this plan to grow pot. So they're trying to figure out how to pay for the supplies to do it and also where to do it. So Robin's in charge of figuring out where to do it. He's in charge of getting the supplies. So lights, fertilizers, things like that to get these plants to grow. And so his scheme is he lives in what is explained to me sort of as a trailer park. That's kind of what it was explained, but maybe it's a nicer trailer park. He's got a lot of neighbors, but it doesn't sound like they're on top of each other or anything. It sounds like they live in a neighborhood. All these people talk, things like that, just like a neighborhood we're in right now. So his idea is to go through his neighbor's mail, find their statements, get their card numbers and shit, and then make orders for whatever he needs. Starts out real slow. It gets gradually bigger and bigger as he needs like fucking $300 lights and things like that. So, while this is happening, a neighbor named Karen, who I think is directly beside them, hits his dog with her car by accident. The dog just runs out in the middle of the road. She immediately goes and tells the family. She puts the dog in the car and takes the dog to the vet. She tried to save this dog's life, and of course he was pronounced dead there. And so they have the same discussion. The mom and Karen do, and mom's tore up about it. She's blaming Karen. You're going too fast down the road, whatever. And the son is present for this conversation. It's his dog. Has no sort of remorse for that. So that's where this started. And the reason why I tell you this is because she notices the money gone from her credit card on these from some big expensive light company. And she immediately attributes that to retaliation for killing the dog. She's like, he's retaliating for me killing the dog, or me killing the dog. And she actually doesn't say anything to them directly. She decides to call the company and see what it's about, that sort of stuff. And it was an online order. They can't confirm anything, But the billing address and the shipping address are obviously different, but within the same neighborhood. And she confirms that it's the other one's house. So she knows it's somewhere over there that used her credit card. So she tries to cancel the order. She's going to have to do it through the card carrier because they can't prove anything that it's even her card or anything. So the company, just as a precaution, calls their contact for the customer. They also send an email. They receive a call from what sounds like someone trying to fake their voice, kind of like this, and sound real low and blah, blah, blah. And basically saying they can't complete the order because the billing address and the shipping address are different. So he's like, okay, whatever, hangs up the phone. Then he calls back a little later and says, okay, we'll go ahead and just send it to the other to the billing address, and I'll just pick it up there. And they're like, well, by this point, card transactions had not gone through. They were bounced back or whatever, so they can't complete the order. He said, okay, whatever, have a nice day. So that happens. Obviously he's going to figure out some other way to do this. So on October 15th, shortly after that, a neighbor named Pamela, who's a stay-at-home, wife, I guess, her husband gets up and goes to work. She does her normal routine. She goes up, gets her cup of coffee, gets on the computer for a little bit, and then she gets a knock at the door. Interesting, that's a completely different neighbor. She opens the door, and a tall, lanky, skinny guy starts beating the shit out of her with a flashlight, like one of those large, big, like police flashlights. Starts beating the hell out of her, slams the door behind him, and she's fighting back. He beats her down to the ground, and she ends up face first, like laying down. She was in a fetal position and got knocked into, they can see the line of blood. That's what they think. They think she got knocked up against the wall and ended up in a fetal position and got hit one time and it spread her out. So she was laying kind of long ways on the carpet. And he hit her over 11 times in the back of the head with that fucking flashlight. This is our boy Scott. So
Confirmed or
confirmed.
Okay.
Confirmed. He gets stabbed, or he stabs her once in the back, and I read this almost like he was like kind of testing, like he didn't know how much force he needed to get into her, basically. And then there's a symbol carved on her back, and it's just like an H, is from what I understand. And they later figure out this isn't a lot of his art, whatever the symbol is. She's then flipped over, and he cuts her belly open. And the organs are kind of disarranged, I would say.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. They're just kind of disorganized and kind of protruding from her. It's not like he pulled them out or anything. It's just kind of they're protruding from her. It's kind of weird. So the style of this murder is what catches the attention of these people trying to... I can't really say because it's not like this man's spoken out on this. But the idea in court was I don't know if the Invader Zim maybe was just using as an example. I didn't hear the court case, so I don't really know. But I know that people were heavily trying to blame Invader Zim on the style of this murder. And it's from a particular episode called The Dark Harvest, and y'all may remember this as I'm explaining it, because I didn't know what was being talked about until I read the summary of it, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that episode. So basically, Zim goes to school, the nurse calls him for a checkup, and then he realizes, I do not have the same anatomy as these other kids.
I remember this.
You remember this episode? Yeah. Okay, so then he proceeds to go around and steal organs from kids and replace it with like just ordinary objects, like a coffee mug, just random shit. And he's just swallowing these organs, I guess. He's not really like putting them in his body any other way. So he's getting like bigger and fatter, and he's just got all these organs. So he thinks that just because he's got all these organs, and it could be multiples of organs, he doesn't care, that he'll look normal when he gets evaluated or whatever. But it got to the point to where like he was opening his mouth and like intestines was flying out, and then he'd slurp it up like spaghetti, and it was really fucking dark. But that's the episode they were comparing it to. So, and we'll get a little more into that, but just to kind of tell you what happened to him is, after the murder, he goes into the house. You know, he evidently regularly went on walks, so it wasn't abnormal for him to be gone or anything. But he had scratches on him, so she got him pretty good. And Mom asks, he fell into a bush. It is what it is. Then of course, a bunch of police shit start to go on later that day. But him and a buddy, this is a different buddy, had went to go get weed from a dealer, like maybe a couple streets over or something like that. They'd walk there, and they get their weed or whatever. But the dealer was trying to tell them, like, look, this shit's on the news in your neighborhood. Maybe you should just hang out here with me for a little bit. Not knowing that this kid had anything to do with the murder, but, you know, just kind of thinking about, you've got weed on you and a lot of police are over there. You know, that's kind of what he was thinking. So he hangs out there a little bit and they sort of talk about it. And then later on, when these people were interviewed, the friend and the dealer, like, he was hinting that he knew something. Like he was like, you know, well, if a murderer really wanted him to feel it, he'd bludgeon him to death and stuff, and let him like he was like making hints at the murder. Anyways, really dark, whatever. He goes home or whatever after a good bulk of the investigation is gone, and then the town or the little road, I guess, you know, people come out of their houses. They had planned to talk about this because a murder happened in their neighborhood, so they may want to set up a watch or something. They kind of meet in the road and discuss this. And his mother immediately blames Karen for this because Karen killed the dog. So that's...
Oh, God.
Accidentally.
So this tells you the headspace this mother's in. And so Karen then proceeds to go, well, you know, if anyone had anything to do with this, there's someone stealing credit cards, so I expect you all to check your credit card accounts, but, you know, it's going back to your house, so, like, look inside your own home before you start, you know, pointing fingers. Mm-hmm. And so now the mother has learned about this. Also, the landlord was at this meeting and learned about this credit card theft and things like that. So the landlord is over at their house very frequently at this point, and she's doing everything she can not to get evicted, you know, because it's probably her son, you know. Yeah. She's probably already assuming this. And she has a conversation with her son, not confirming whether he did the credit card stuff or not, but said, if you had anything to do with credit card theft, you're going to put any piece of paper, any writing, anything you've got that is related to that in this backpack, and you will leave it somewhere. So later that night, he actually does it. One of the friends confirms this. They were over that night. And he takes all the papers that he had written, information, stuff off this in this backpack. But he also put some of his books in there in a flash drive. And when the mom finds the book bag later, it's not like she gets rid of the book bag, but she takes all the papers out, figures out what was going on, and ends up burning them. So the girl, and Robin, the girlfriend, was about to get in trouble for the card theft, so he decides to turn himself on it, basically. So he gets in trouble. It gives the police a reason to search the house more thoroughly. They don't find anything other than what's in his bedroom, you know, and that's the stuff I was telling you about. But there's an old van sitting outside with grown-up shit all over it. There's green vegetation all inside the van and anything, but they look in it, and in the front seat there's a duffel bag that's got a trench coat, the mask he was wearing, the gloves and everything, and they confirm him for the murder. So they get him on that, and so they've confirmed he's killed this lady. He got life in prison, without parole, and then that good old law that we were talking about in the last one, whatever that federal law was, changed it to where minors are not allowed to be sentenced to life in prison without some sort of parole, and his sentence was changed to 25 years in prison during that. So
go
he
from
got
life
off
to 25.
He did a lot better than that other girl did.
Yeah.
But the reason why I kind of bring this up, and anybody can look into this, it's Scott Dulesky, and maybe on the Facebook page y'all can explain this a little better if you find more detail than I had. Kind of has why they were comparing this Zim episode to his, why he did this, and nobody could confirm that it was because of this. But do you think like media like that could change us, even if he did watch it?
I think it definitely was a media thing. Like they were trying to figure out a way to like rationalize events around this story. It seems like. Yeah,
and it was since it was used in court as like, I think it was being used in a way to kind of say that he saw those images and that kind of caused him to want to do this. I was reading in some other places that like some of his friends had said that he had like fascinations with like, well, what if you pulled like one organ out of the body? How long would you live? Like things like that, like where it was just like they were curious talking.
So he never explain why he did it and why he chose that specific person?
Oh, he denies it to this day. He denies that
he's never confessed.
He's never confessed. So
interesting.
Yeah, he's never confessed to the murder, even with getting the 25 years. And I think that's probably why his lawyer was able to do something like that, is because he's never confessed to it. They found they convicted him on DNA and where they found it, and the stuff, the items were his, and all that was confirmed. I don't know if they ever found the flashlight. I'll be honest with you. I never saw anything saying they found the flashlight. But they were able to confirm that it was the same size as a flashlight. Yeah. As a tactical flashlight. But she was beat pretty bad. I mean, she would have died to the bludgeoning, so we think she didn't really, there was no reason to necessarily cut her up or anything like that. It was clearly because of curiosity.
I once read.
But would Zim do that? Would like a Zim episode cause you to be curious about that?
I once read somewhere that it seemed like a lot of these like true crime based stories of events where events like this happen, where they're just graphic and unseemly and just like one of those what on earth would possess somebody. I heard that there was a big shift away from mental health, and that happened around the late 90s and early 2000s whenever the stuff started popping up more. And a lot of the blame was shifted to TV, video games, basically like the whole censorship movement, really.
Well, do you think there's like some validity to any of that?
I don't think so. And I think it really just comes back to the fact that we've just ignored mental health issues for so long as far as like a nation goes.
Trying to blame it on something else.
Yeah, like if you look at our like murder rates compared to other nations in the world, like we are significantly a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, straight up murder and suicide even.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that, Nick? Do you think that has an effect on your? Do you think that could have affected a kid as broken as he was to want to be that graphic with a murder or do something like maybe it wouldn't have stopped him from murdering, but did it pique his curiosity? Do you think that had something to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, well, he came from a bad place, right? I mean,
yeah,
he had some trauma,
had some unfortunate stuff happen.
Yeah,
his parents divorced, his sister died.
I'm kind of with Branch, but I mean, I guess maybe stuff like that, like violence in TV, video games, whatever. I mean, it can maybe exacerbate your curiosity just a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it's like a driving force.
Yeah.
I think it's stuff that actually physically or emotionally happens to you psychologically that you can't seem to recover from, or you can't seem to get any mental health you can't seek any mental health for, and stuff like that. So I think it's mainly stuff like that, or just coming from a bad home life
Yeah.
in general.
And I think I'll be honest with you. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's probably majority mental health issues. I kind of agree there, but I think at some point it kind of comes to age too. So like, would a young one be more fascinated and already kind of stylize those murders, having seen that sort of imagery and things like that, versus like an older one that, you know, probably decided he was curious into that sort of stuff and probably looked up images of stuff he had not, you know, would a 16-year-old be affected by a cartoon to want to commit a murder like that? That's where I'm like, I can see maybe because we were younger. We were younger at that time, so
maybe to an extent, but I'm thinking more along the lines of you have to personally want to do something like that and have an inkling of it already in your head.
We're starting to leave that developmental world, you know, at 16. Like you're 10 years away from 25 when your brain stops growing or whatever. So if you're at the point, like, I feel like maybe a 5-year-old could probably be affected by seeing something like that on TV more than a 16-year-old could. You know, where a 16-year-old was probably searching for that.
When
like
you're
trying to find it.
When you're really, really young like that, I mean, your mind's probably more easily manipulated.
Yeah.
Or
vice versa. It could be that you ignore it more when you're younger. Yeah, I think it would depend on the person or the kid, or you know,
I guess maybe it just depends on how you feel about certain things morally too. I mean, you know,
definitely. When obviously this kid didn't have any fear of death or even watching death or any, you know, he wasn't fazed by his dog dying. He was definitely fazed by his sister's death, but that sounds a lot like where this started, like maybe the divorce and the sister, it seems, because that's what, like,
dealing with trauma, yeah.
When he made decisions to like drop out of school and get his GED instead and things like that. But anyways, I thought that was an interesting topic because, you know, I'm a kid that played Grand Theft Auto at the age of 8, and look where I'm at.
Yeah, you're only beating up hookers every other week.
Jesus Christ! Please don't say that. I have people watching me. Nah.
I played Saints Row, and you can do a lot crazier stuff in there. So thankfully, I can't do the things I can do in that game.
Yeah, even if I am watched, you're not going to find. You're probably going to mostly FBI agent. That I always talk to the FBI agent that's in my Alexa, and I'm like, "How many times did I shit today?" like, because that's all you're going to really figure out. It's like I work and I shit, and I eat occasionally.
That's my life. I
look
work
at your
and I
Roomba
shoot.
and tell you what your house looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's see what I'm trying to say. Like you like my house, or what? You know, if anybody's watching, I'm probably really boring to watch. But if you are listening to me, FBI agent, there's Alexa in that other room. If you are listening to us, the podcast is called Disarrangement, and you should listen. It comes out every other week. So anyways, I think Nick had us a little bit of a topic we'll hit on.
I did.
That went a little longer than I wanted it to. Damn. Well, it's still 30 minutes. I think we hit on the football the hardest.
Yeah. This might be.
I'm trying to
be a
keep
good
these
topic to end
shorter
on.
for y'all. But
Yeah.
it's a great topic to end on.
Well, I wanted to start this by talking to Branch because I remember back in high school we had one of those computer classes together. It might have been Miss Atkins' class or something like that, or maybe it was the one that Mr. Bowen was the teacher for.
I think we had Bowen together.
Okay, yeah. And I remember you used to talk a lot about Simple Plan, like they're you're like your favorite band. Do you still feel that way?
I'm actually going to see them next month in concert.
Where are they at?
They are in Raleigh.
Dude, I might need to go to that because I've been wanting to see them too.
I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what, Nick.
Told
I
him
got
I was
2
looking
tickets
into
for
it.
it. If who I'm planning to go with can't go, I'm inviting you to go with me.
Do you know the date
It is the 29th
of April?
Yeah, it's a Friday.
I might not have a gig. Hang on.
And some 41s.
I don't.
Too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
is-
Hit me up if that other person doesn't go. I might
Yeah,
go.
it's some 41 and Simple Plan.
Dude, that would be a good show. Well, anyways, that just got me thinking about the whole period of like 2000 to 2010, right? You know, we had at least this, and this is what I would consider, I guess, like just rock music that was the most popular in that time period, and that's the time that we all kind of grew up and stuff like that. And I kind of narrowed it down to like, you know, two genres of rock in that era that were really big was like post grunge / alternative. So bands like Creed, Nickelback, Fuel, Disturbed, you know, stuff like that.
I don't know if I'd consider Disturbed to be
That's a little
post
heavier.
grunge band.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Post grunge was. I would definitely like any band that ever sort of sounded like Nickelback or Creed,
or like Puddle of Mud.
Yeah, Puddle of Mud.
You know,
that's
like
all
that.
your post grunge.
And even like when Daughtry came out, they were like put in the post grunge
I'll throw them in that category.
and stuff.
I would.
And then like so around the time of Daughtry, you also had 3 Days Grace, Breaking Benjamin, stuff like that.
Yeah. It continued. It
Stuff
kept
that
going.
I really love. So that was one spectrum of rock that I think was really big, and then you had the other spectrum, which was the pop punk emo stuff, like My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy. Well, Blink 182 kind of starting all of that.
All that. I would
All Time
consider
Low.
pop rock can be like
Well,
all
even-
that
and even
stuff.
like
you can include anything that was emo or goth
Yeah,
that wasn't.
Well,
metal.
even Green Day was put in that category with like American Idiot,
Yeah,
you know,
the
and stuff like that.
American Idiot album definitely was part of that movement.
Green Day was kind of like pre that era, but yeah.
Yeah,
But that album in particular
Yeah.
was
yeah.
I would
in
put
the
it
90s,
in that
in the
realm.
90s, Green Day I think was more straight.
They were more punk.
They were more punk, but then when American Idiot came out, they kind of went full blown
That was pop.
punk. And so I just kind of been thinking about it since you're a big Simple Plan fan. I know you like a lot of that, the post grunge alternative
I like it
stuff.
all, by the way.
Yeah.
I like both of those genres a lot.
Well, yeah, I know you really like Panic at the Disco.
Yeah,
stuff like that. So, which of these? And I've been trying to think about this. I don't know if I have an answer, but I've been trying to think of which of those. Maybe you call them subgenres, I guess.
Yeah.
Which of those had more significance in that era than?
Now, define
Because neither of them lasted very long necessarily, as far as like these bands being able to fill out stadiums and stuff like that.
Now you use the word significance, and I think we should better
Yeah,
define that word.
I think he's trying to say like what affected that era of music more.
Yeah.
I would say like its overall effect, the movement itself.
Yeah. What did that do? I
What
mean, because
affected music more?
in like the 60s and 70s, all these bands were so innovative and just gigantic, and they
were just music.
Yeah, like they've still stood the test of time, as to where those bands that were so popular when we were younger, the bands we just mentioned, like didn't have this, except for maybe if you exclude Nickelback. I mean, Nickelback still.
Yeah, what's going to last? I think that's a good way of thinking. What's going to last well beyond?
Yeah, if any of it at all, that's music that I think means a lot to just us three in particular. Like I'm sure a lot of any, boomer generation people listening to this probably don't care about any of these bands at all.
They might.
But-
They might. You'd be.
I mean, they
surprised.
might,
I'm
but-
going to go ahead and make the boomer generation mad as well. So you brought up the test of time. And if you look at things regarding the test of time, so I'm going to bring up a band that I think is very overrated. I think the Beatles are overrated. And I think the Beatles
Ooh.
are overrated because if the Beatles came out in
with
today's context, they would be seen as like your average boy band. But because they came out before that became a thing, before that became popular,
They kind
and
of established that.
yeah, exactly. But I think your question you're getting regarding these two like subgenres of rock is which one do I think is going to stand the test of time better?
You sure? Or just which one? Which one is better? You could just say which one do you think is better.
Yeah, say which you think is better, and then which would say both.
My strong personal opinions, I listen to a lot more of that pop punk style, like the Simple Plan, All American Rejects, Fall Out
All
Boy.
American Rejects is so good.
And I definitely listen to that a lot more, and I still listen to it a lot today. But I try to think about what I currently hear on the radio, and it would strongly benefit me to turn my radio on more.
It's changed.
but-
I haven't listened to the radio in a long
Yeah.
time, but when it
But-
pops up, I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
But the last time I do remember turning on the radio, and this may have just been the stations that I listen to, but I try to think of which one of those two genres I hear more on just your generic rock station. And mostly I do not hear either one of those genres as much as I hear stuff from like the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, they
because,
still play a lot of the old classic rock stuff on rock radio. But Like,
I think you were a lot more likely, me personally, like just what I've heard on the radio, you're a lot more likely to hear Nickelback
Yeah.
hit that radio
Yeah,
station.
and I agree with that statement. Like you
Maybe not Creed, but I think the Creed discography in general, I think will stand the test of time. That's just me personally.
And that was kind of the point that I was making. You're probably going to touch those other bands that we mentioned that fall in that pop punk category, but you're pretty much only going to hear like the absolute biggest hits. Of
like
those
you
band
might
had.
hear "Move Along" by All American
Yeah.
Rejects.
You might
once
hear,
in a blue
and you're
moon.
going to hear it on a
You
pop
know?
station
Yeah,
too.
you
or
might
an
hear "Dance
alternative
Dance" by
station.
Fall Out Boy every
Yeah.
once in a while,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're probably going to hear like more discography from a band like Nickelback or Creed. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Nickelback, I don't, and like Blakely said, I don't listen to a lot of rock radio anymore. Besides like the classic rock station, the local one here, Rock 92. Shout out to Rock 92.
Oh yeah.
But and they just play all the really older stuff. But I mean, I don't even really hear Nickelback. I don't.
If
know.
With Arms Wide Open can't stand the test of time, I don't know what can, to be honest with you. But I really think, well, and Nickelback's kind of, well, I don't even know if that's considered Nickelback or more Chad Kroeger, but kind of establishing themselves in the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
The hero can save it. Like you're forever gonna hear that shit, and someone in 2040 is going to hear With Arms Wide Open and put that in a fucking movie. And it's going to do the same thing. And but I think with the pop punk stuff, I think that defined a generation more.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you wanted to, if I was going to tell somebody, if my first thought of explaining what my generation listened to, I would go to pop punk first before I would go to the post-grunge stuff.
Interesting.
And the reason why is because it established a heavier culture over it. So the most you got out of the post-grunge listening is probably Wolf Shirts or something like that.
Affliction.
You see what I'm saying? Like a pierced ear, spike tips, blonde, something like that. But out of what you got out of pop punk, that created a whole fashion trend. That created what we consider to be emo, just that status. Even more than that, even like the earlier stuff, like you were saying, like, and I consider Simple Plan to be part of that earlier genre.
Yeah, because they were like early 2000s around that time.
02 for the first album.
Blink
Yeah.
182, those dudes.
And some 41.
Those dudes are the ones that like embraced black without being goth. Like, that defined of what a generation is inevitably going to listen to and look like.
Yeah, because like before that, and he's talking about Simple Plans. Like, I remember them wearing like all black and stuff like that. But and they definitely don't do that now. But
they didn't look like a black metal band,
right? Exactly. Like, and you think of that before them, like Misfits might come
and
up.
they don't fit really. Well, no, even I would say, the Misfits definitely created an image, but even though they were wearing black, it's still a different image. It hit different. These were cleaner cut guys. They especially like the Misfits, those guys were either like buff out of their brains or gross. One or the other. You see what I mean? Like that. I think that was its own image. And if you look at Nickelback, it's just
Jeans and
Canadians.
t-shirt. Yeah.
Jeans and t-shirt.
Yeah. Ramen noodle hair.
Yeah, like it was very more average. Guy coming out of the grunge era.
And you mentioned that, and I think that's kind of where like my mentality went to whenever we're talking about this. Like, I feel like that kind of appealed to the masses more. Like, your average everyday guy was more likely to listen to the like post grunge era music.
And that's where
at the
you're going to
time.
hear it on the radio.
Yeah, and a lot of those early post grunge alternative bands, got put on like the bigger festivals. I feel like and stuff
Yes.
like
Maybe the pop punk just it
the
fit
pop punk
us
thing
more. Maybe.
Yeah, well, the pop punk thing they had like Warped Tour, but Warped Tour
that was kind of just skater music. That was really where it started.
Yeah.
So Warped Tour had been a thing before pop punk became a thing, but then skaters started listening. Well, they'd always listened to punk music, so it wasn't abnormal for them to start listening to pop punk. You know, it got a little lighter. Even like Bam Margera helped move that. Tony Hawk helped move that, but fucking Eminem was on Warped Tour. So, they kind of did whatever skaters listened to. That was what Van's plan was. So.
I just feel like you weren't gonna see like Simple Plan or Blink or something like that in the early 2000s on like Rock Am Ring or something like that.
But now you would definitely
now
see
you would.
a marketable like Fall Out Boy or
Yeah.
someone that was heavily marketed. You would see them on something like that.
Yeah.
I say what'll stand the test of time post grunge. What defined the generation more? Pop punk.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it.
I think the pop punk stuff, I think they had catchier songs in a lot of instances.
And I think that's
it was
why
pop.
I still listen to that
Yeah.
genre more, because it's something I can like get into a little bit more. It's a little more catchy, a little bit more
Yeah.
upbeat. Yeah.
That's what I never liked about regular grunge music. I just thought none of the songs were very catchy, and
I
then
loved it all. I loved it all.
And then but the post grunge stuff, I guess maybe, I don't know, they started adding more. I'm always a very melodic type of person. I like to hear melodies and stuff in songs, and maybe with the Nickelbacks and the Creeds and Breaking Benjamins, which Breaking Benjamin's actually one of my favorite bands, but I think they added more. Just there's more harmonies and melodies.
I disagree on the harmony part. I would say there was more simple melody. That's a better way to explain post grunge. And that's what made it marketable.
Yeah.
There was more catchiness to it. That's a better way. Like, what's going to get stuck in your brain? Like Sludge Factory by Alice in Chains? Hell no.
Yeah.
That might get stuck in my brain because I'm a huge Alice in Chains fan. But that song is kind of meant to drone and be what it is. But the reason why post grunge sounds the way it is because Man in a Box. You think about that song, well, okay, yeah, that song definitely would get stuck in your head very easy.
Yeah, especially the wah guitar part.
Yeah, that was one of their simple melodies. Da, 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 da. That had a simple melody behind it. And I think post grunge, just every song had that established simple melody that was going to catch you.
Yeah.
And get you into the song. And pop music had already been doing that for years. So basically, pop punk just did the same thing. They just added that simple melody to punk music to keep someone there.
Yeah.
And even those bands started, becoming its own genre because they started like mixing differently. Like when you listen to Simple Plan, you hear a lot of the punk, or not Simple Plan, Blink-182. You hear a lot of the punk influence, and there is simple melody in there, but it's not as much as like, let's say, like Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco or something like that. Even Panic at the Disco was kind of riding those lines because they were adding like complex melody, but on a simple format. So maybe the guitar parts were simple, the drum parts were simple, the music itself was simple, but the instrumentation was simple, but the written out music, a fucking orchestra could probably, make sound a million times bigger. But so I mean, like those bands were kind of molding their own form of what it was.
Yeah.
I feel like the bands were more different than each other in that genre than like post grunge. Where post grunge, like you could sometimes you couldn't even tell who the band was.
Yeah.
But you just like you'd hear Crossfade and then immediately default right after and think it's the same band. Like you could easily do that.
That's what I really love about, and I'm a huge All Time Low fan, and that's what I really have loved about that band over their time. Was
that band you hear a lot of punk in their songs,
especially in their early stuff. But as they, with each album, it's like they evolved. They didn't stray too far away from their roots.
I would say they became more of a pop band rather than a punk band.
Yeah, yeah, they did. But they evolved in a good way.
A lot of them did. That's what Panic at the Disco did that. Fall Out Boy did that. A lot of them became more pop than they were punk originally.
Do you remember we brought out the All American Rejects a little while ago? Remember that first album they had? It bombed. Like no one listened to it.
I don't know why.
But there were some catchy songs on it, though.
I don't know why. All American Rejects, every song.
But if you listen
great.
to the first album versus the second one, they got a lot more like, I guess, trendy, I guess would be the word I would describe it. It felt a little like there was a little bit more of a rock influence versus the first one. It sounds a little bit too soft and upbeat.
It's very soft. The second one's a little softer, but of course that's going to catch the masses a little better. One of my favorites was Taking Back Sunday. I love Taking Back Sunday, but that kind of established my happy medium of the two styles, honestly, because they pulled a lot from grunge and post grunge vocally.
Yeah.
The music wasn't, I would say, the same, but vocally they were. I mean, those dudes were screaming at the top of their lungs, and it wasn't your death metal screams or anything. Like, it was sorrow screams, kind of like Chris Cornell or
You
Kurt
can
Cobain.
sort of point like a similar bring up a similar thing with like Sum 41 and even like Lit.
Well, Sum 41, I think they kind of established that they want to be called thrash.
Yeah, yeah.
They wanted to be called like punk thrash or something like that, but they were kind of in that era. They kind of helped boot that
Yeah.
era, just like
And
Green Day
and
did.
I think Lit kind of, at least, I mean,
Lit was
they
very much in that realm.
yeah, they kind of crossed that line, or walked that line between the pop punk stuff and like the kind of post grunge
Post-grunge.
thing.
They kind of were in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, and they were really only popular for probably a year or so, but because My Own Worst Enemy still played.
And that's
like,
why you don't get lit, people.
Yeah.
'Cause if you get lit, you burn too quick.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting thing to think about, because it was in our time.
We had a lot of music in our generation.
Yeah, and our parents,
people didn't.
I'm really jealous of my parents, because I really wish I could have grew up in the '80s and witnessed that music scene, because apparently it was the biggest just party, of all time.
It was.
And I would have loved to experience that. But I really do enjoy a lot of the music that came out in the time that I was growing up, and and even me and my dad were talking about this the other day. Even pop songs that were popular in that time frame that we didn't maybe necessarily like at the time, but you hear some of them now, and it just takes you back to a time, simpler time when you were younger and didn't have as many
James.
worries and stuff like
There was
that.
a lot of good music back then too, but they had a lot. I think it was a lot more genred.
Yeah.
Back then, where like our music, the music that was coming out in our era, other than maybe rap and pop, well, I don't know, even like our pop music compared to their pop music, you can tell
vastly different.
Yeah, vastly, but
For
it's-
worse reasons.
Yeah, I would say kind of 80s pop was
Definitely a lot
more-
better.
Yeah, it was less commercialed. Like
But
it was more performance.
But it's
and
like
less
it's like I'm
commercial.
saying though, like Fireflies by Owl City. Not like the greatest song in the world, but every time I hear
Catchy as
that,
hell.
every time I hear that song, I'm like, dude, this song is just.
I think that describes Owl City in general, though. It's very catchy music.
Yeah,
it's
I don't
just
know
all
if I've ever
really
really
catchy.
listened to anything other than that song, but yeah, it just takes me back to being in high school and stuff like that.
I always have to revisit. But I will tell you this: and this is why I think that way, because if I want to go revisit high school, I don't turn on Creed.
Yeah. Well, they weren't. They weren't popular when we were in high school.
And
though they did reunite when we were in high school for a brief period.
But the things that I remember most about growing up, I'll be honest with you, is mostly high school now. Like that's where I've gotten. I things pop up here and there from when I was very, very young. Like seeing all that Nickelodeon stuff, that just brought back a whole bunch of stuff from like the age of 6. But when I was, when I say when I was growing up, what I mean is what I was doing or listening to in high school. That's really what I mean. So I do think they have their place in the world, but I would say that I'm much more likely to hear a Creed or Nickelback song in, however long I make it, later in life. I feel like that's going to be more the average.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way too. Like I said, pretty much any pop punk band besides maybe Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco are playing theaters and stuff nowadays. Nickelback,
you're seeing 'em.
Nickelback's still playing arenas and stadiums, and if Creed ever
Somehow.
got back together, they're playing
Oh, yeah.
stadiums.
Yeah,
and stuff.
that
so.
was. I bet record labels. Yeah, I don't know who their record label was at the time, but I bet they were so upset when Creed dissolved for the first time. Like that was just probably the biggest hit that company ever took.
I
Maybe
don't
they were
necessarily
on
think that was
Universal.
true, because I remember Alter Bridge also signed up with that same record label. So I think basically the fans just kind of transitioned when that happened.
Yeah, but Alter Bridge came out so much later So, I mean, they would have transitioned, but I don't think you would have had the same fan. Like, Alter Bridge didn't have the same,
But they had
same draw like Creed did.
But they had they kind of reinvented that. They kind of built their own fan base around the
Yeah,
new brand.
yeah. They got. I'm sure they established a lot of new because the music was different.
I think on the first Alter Bridge album, I think there was a little bit of similarity to Creed from like in the first time,
Yeah,
but then
you
after
can
that,
hear
they
that
got totally different.
They were
from Creed.
pulling like probably some old songs that
Yeah.
Mark had wrote back in Creed.
Like
but-
I remember the first single from Alter Bridge, "Open Your Eyes"
Yeah,
or whatever.
Open
that,
Your
or that was the
Eyes
first time I
and
remember.
Broken Wings
That
were
one
the two
was
off
that
that
one was
album.
almost like a straight Creed song.
Dude.
I feel like.
and if you listen to Broken Wings, other than it being tuned down to be, it's a straight up Creed song, and,
Yeah.
and it's gorgeous in the vocal. Like both of those songs actually are very very pretty.
Yeah.
in its vocal styling. So it's like, without Scott there, if hearing Scott sing those, I'm kind of glad I didn't hear Scott sing those songs, and it's not because he was a bad singer. It's because Miles just did so good on those tunes. Like he just brought beauty to what metal could do,
Yeah.
or post grunge or whatever you want. Mark was definitely getting heavier in his writing
Yeah.
as we neared the end of Creed. So, well, anyways, just to kind of finish up there, we're gonna go into legit oh shit, and
Legit
then
or
and then we'll let you
shit.
go. And thanks again, Branch, for being here. We're going to make you do something right at the end of this because
Okay.
Needham established a precedent. So, but legit or shit. So, the longest commercial in TV history was 14 hours. Legit or shit?
I'm gonna say legit.
Can I ask a follow-up question, or is that the only context I get?
Depends what the question is.
When you define commercial, what do you define commercial as?
A legit commercial that you see, the legit commercials you're getting on YouTube, the legit commercials you're getting on Hulu.
A commercial
What you
is
see on TV.
so a
like what
commercial
they
is
stopped a broadcast for.
So a commercial is defined as an advertisement directed to market a product to a particular consumer.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say it's legit.
It was legit.
Nice.
Can y'all guess who did it?
I'm going to guess an insurance company.
That's what that was my first guess when I was reading this shit.
I'm gonna be really wild and say like Viagra or something. Like
Viagra.
that.
You're close. It would, because that would make sense, right?
Prescription, yeah.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah. It was actually Old Spice because
okay.
they and I think this is an older commercial, but it had to do with how long their scent lasted. That's why it was so long.
Ha.
So
Okay.
evidently they probably would have had to pay a broadcast a shit ton of money to establish it, but that was before like minimums on commercial times and stuff.
Well, back in the day, they had like TV channels that were just dedicated to only playing commercials.
Yeah, it may have been on one of those. I don't know.
Well, that one they probably just played the whole night through. Just
Yeah,
started it at
14
6
hours
o'clock.
long.
And, yeah, you just watch an Old Spice commercial for 14 hours.
Okay, so I've got another one for you. Chuck Norris was one of the first people to try contact lenses. Legit or shit?
That's interesting. Okay.
I'm going to say shit.
I don't think he wears contacts. I'm going to agree with Nick again and say shit.
It is shit. Okay, so even though it is shit, it is still pretty interesting because that was actually Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Okay.
was one
That
of the
still
first
seems kind of late
individuals-
though, because Bruce Lee was popular in like the 60s.
Yep.
Like I feel like contacts would have been around before then, but
was
I
one
think
of the-
hard contacts probably were. That's probably why they weren't very common.
yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Lee was nearsighted, so that actually kind of affected his martial art and defined how he did the art too. And because you can't wear glasses while doing that stuff, and so he tried them for a while, ditched them towards the end of his life actually, which wasn't long, but here's another good one. Barbie's full name is Barbara Millicent Roberts. Legit or shit? You know what I'm talking about? Barbie, like the doll,
Yeah.
the toy.
I think I'm going to go in front of him this time so I don't copy his answer. I think it's legit.
I think I was gonna say the same thing though. Legit.
Think it's legit?
Yeah.
It is legit.
Man, are we going 3 for 3 tonight?
Y'all are on it tonight.
Damn.
So they wanted to give it the actual long name. That was what they wanted to establish.
Out of curiosity, do
And
you know
then-
what the kin name is?
The kid name?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm curious if there's one for Ken, too.
I'm sure we could find it.
I bet Barbara was like just too like sophisticated sounding, I guess.
I think they wanted to give it the full name and market it like that. And then they nicknamed her Barbie, like kind of like Teddy, like a teddy bear.
Right, because
like you call it your Teddy.
Barbara, a lot of kids wouldn't be drawn to that, I guess.
And then later the marketing moved into Barbie because everybody was calling them Barbies at that point. So Ken Doll's full name.
Sure.
Let's try that.
Might pull up something at least.
Ken
Ken
Carson. Ken Carson. That's all it gives.
Huh.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Well, there you go, audience.
Yeah,
You learned that.
you've learned about Barbies.
Yeah.
Here's another one. So on our Nickelodeon theme, the 1998 Rugrats movie was Nickelodeon's first in-theater movie. Legit or shit?
Shit.
I too am going to say shit.
Going to say, just follow Branch. It is shit. It's the first animated movie. But
That's actually where I was going to get with that. I'm pretty sure they had
the
something in the
first
mid-'90s before that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Rugrats was released. The movie was released in '98, and the real movie was Harriet the Spy. I don't know if y'all remember that, but that was in '96. It had
Okay.
Rosie O'Donnell. I can't remember the main character's name.
I was going to say, I don't think Good Burger was released theatrically.
Quite. I think it was a TV movie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool classic.
A successful,
so good.
one of the most successful TV movies, probably.
I guess I was going to say Snow Day, but I think that actually came out after Rugrats, but I was pretty sure.
Is that a Nickelodeon movie?
Yeah, it's a Nickelodeon movie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
I was surprised when I was looking through their movies and saw Snow Day.
Wait. I'm thinking of Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding Jr.
Oh,
yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
Actually,
I was like, that's Nickelodeon? What?
Well, Nick, I think I could be wrong on this, but that might actually be a Nickelodeon movie too. If it's not a Nickelodeon movie, I think Paramount at least made it.
Huh.
Oh, God. Okay, so one last legit or shit. Bananas glow blue in black light. Legit or shit?
You got one on this one?
I'm going to go legit.
I'm going to differentiate. I'm going to go shit on this one.
There you go, shit. It is legit.
Okay.
So chlorophyll.
I'm all right.
It is explained that the chlorophyll in a ripening banana will turn blue.
Huh.
So, yeah, y'all got really fucking close to clearing it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you went opposite, you was just like, I'm trying to beat him.
Yeah.
It's like I need to go the opposite just to because that's the only way for y'all both to individually establish that. So. But anyways, yeah, so that was a good show. We talked a lot about a lot of good things. So
Branch, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah,
You're definitely welcome
really
anytime.
appreciate it.
We had some great conversations.
I do my best. I try not to talk too much, but it's hard to do
No,
that here.
dude, talk. That's what this is for, man.
The whole point of
That was
this,
the joke that I was making, but yeah.
the whole point of this was literally just because like me and Nick had so many long conversations that we didn't mean to have. Like we didn't mean to extend them that long. And it's like this gives us a reason to just do it. Like just have those conversations. So we really appreciate you joining us, and you've fed in a lot of good information too. A lot of good conversation.
Follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, Anchor.
Yeah, still working on the Apple thing, so y'all just bear with me here.
I believe we're on Google Podcasts as well.
Yeah, we're on Google Podcasts.
I think we should maybe look
Anchor,
into Facebook
Spotify.
Podcasts as well. We are
They
not
have
on
their
there
own
yet.
podcast? Okay, well I'll figure that out.
Yeah. So, but yeah, follow us anywhere. We can join a Facebook group that we have. It's the Disarrangement Podcast, and I always post the links in the YouTube video, and follow us on Twitter as well.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Get Disarranged.
Yep.
And I believe that's about it. So Needham has established this ritual that you're going to do, and we're going to make it really epic. So can you give us a Get Disarranged real quick, Branch?
Get disarranged.
Nice. I like it. Okay, so it's been 2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 more. And y'all have a good night or day, wherever you are. And then Nick has to say something because he's always the end of the podcast.
Yeah. Prepare to get disarranged.